which they're accumulating their weapons. If you can disrupt them and anywhere along that chain, you're going to disrupt the operation. You're going to be able to save lives.
So guys, the key here, it's an old cliche, but the best defense is sometimes a good offense. And that's why as we're standing out here this morning, we don't see any new visible security efforts here in Silver Spring, Maryland. We don't see a stepped up police presence or guard dogs or anything of the kind. And the experts say there's a real reason for that.
Okay, and we're going to leave it there. Thank you for that. And we'll continue this conversation for more on airport security. Let's bring in Chad Wolf, former assistant administrator at the TSA. Good morning to you, Chad. The one conversation that you keep hearing over and over again is, what do? We push out the perimeter at an airport. But it does raise this question: are we going after the right thing? And if we're talking about doing it in an airport, what do we do at the train station? What do we do at the shopping mall? Are we looking at the right aspect of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think as TSA responds to what happens in Brussels, they got to look at a variety of different measures. And what you're going to see at airports and probably at train stations, metro stations, is that increased law enforcement presence. That's really the primary response that TSA has when we look at our transportation notes. As your earlier reporting said, the choke points here are the security checkpoints. And wherever you push those out, whether they're inside an airport terminal or they're outside the airport property, those are the choke points. And you're not going to get away from that. So what you have to do is you have to eliminate the vulnerability and really address the threat there. And so increase law enforcement presence, increase K9s, measures like that, a little bit of a random nature is really what the right response is going to be. Outside of that, you're going to continue to create more lines, more choke points if you try to institute more aggressive measures.
Chad, with apologies, some people call what goes on at the airports security theater. That it's meant to scare you, it's meant to give you a sense that there is a security. There's the dogs, there's the technology, all of that. But it is so unlike, for example, what takes place in Israel when you walk into an airport there and there are people who literally come up to you within moments and start talking to you. And they're having a conversation with you. Where are you going? What are you doing with it? And they do it very quickly, they do it very efficiently, and then you're off. Why don't we do that, and what's the cost of that?
Yeah, the cost is significant. I would say that TSA is focused on the threat. You've got vulnerability and you've got threat. The threat in the past has been at that checkpoint, has been stopping prohibited items from getting on board that aircraft. That's what terrorists have tried to do in the past. They've been successful at times. So TSA has to shore up that. It comes back to resources. Right now, they're putting the majority of their resources at that checkpoint. What we've seen in Brussels, and what TSA has really known of vulnerability is in that the larger part of the airport terminal. And so now they're going to, things are going to change because of Brussels, and they should change. And so now becomes, what can we do in the airport terminal that increases, that safety level, that security level? And there are limited things you can do. The airport terminal is very different than the checkpoint. And so there are going to be some real challenges there. But as far as, TSA has experimented with behavioral detection. And whether they get it right, and there's been some criticism from folks on the Hill about how they institute that. Is it profiling? Is it not? Those are all things that go into the makeup. And I think as we talk about the Israeli model, I think we have to understand the atmosphere here in the U.S. is very different than it is in Israel. And it's one airport that they have in Israel. We have 450 airports. So the cost of doing something very similar at one airport in Israel versus 450 in the U.S. is very significant. And we can't forget about the resources that it takes to shore up our airports across the country. And I think if we want to see a higher increased presence, more technology, we're going to have to devote the resources to
it. Our trains, I'm always astonished. I travel oftentimes between Penn Station, New York, and D.C. You walk up to Madison Square Garden, you don't even show a driver's license to get on the train. And there's definitely, no true security in terms of bomb detection or anything else.
Yeah, it's a real challenge because what you're facing there is really the freedom of movement, the flow of those passengers. It's very different than at an airport. And what TSA and DHS has done in the past is surge law enforcement presence. So you'll see increased law enforcement officers, increased K9s, TSA Viper teams in their screening on a random basis passengers. But that's not sustainable over the long term. So the question that DHS and TSA is trying to is a debate.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And coming up, Wall Street bracing for new regulation. New regulation that could delay executive bonuses. Details coming up, plus new data on the worst quarter for deal makers since the financial crisis.
Basic program is sponsored by Baird. Financial advice and services since 1919. There's no one road out there. No one surface. No one speed. No one way of driving on each and every road. There is one car that can conquer them all. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class. 5 driving modes let you customize the steering, shift points, and suspension. You're in. You've never walked through all. The 2016 C-Class. Lease the C300 for $399 a month at your local Mercedes-Benz dealer. Own the T2i. Own the vehicle. Own the scenic route. The only adventure sales event is happening now. Land Rover, above and beyond. How are you so confident?
Because right now they're just allocations.
These are key suppliers and major violations. SEC is
Looking for cooperation. Police preserve documents, emails,
first.
the books and records, all under a microscope. Worldwide.
We don't have those kind of resources.
I know. That's why we're going to bring in radio.
Video.
People who know BDO. I'm the company data hog. I do the sales, the marketing. I have to do that from my phone.
Use tons of data. I don't really have to worry about it because everything's unlimited.
I need data and I need it now.
Done. Introducing the best unlimited 4G LTE business plan in wireless. 3 lines of unlimited data for only $50 each. When you get 3 lines, we'll give you a 4th line free. Only for a limited time with T-Mobile at work. Today, we're seeing new technologies make healthcare more personal with patient-centric digital innovations. From self-monitoring devices that can interpret personal data and enable targeted care, to cloud platforms that invite providers to collaborate with the patients they serve. That's why over 90% of the top 25 global pharmaceutical companies are turning to Cognizant. Our domain experts, technologists, digital and data specialists, clinicians, and scientists are transforming the way clinical research sites collaborate with pharmaceutical companies and enhancing patient engagement with innovative platforms and solutions. Our population's growing healthcare needs present growing opportunities for our clients to advance the future of medicine with digital and improve the quality of lives.
You're watching TNBC's First in Business Worldwide.
Today, all eyes on Apple. Our new products on pre-order. The impact on consumers and investors now. Scott Kelly, 11 a.m. Eastern, CNBC.
Welcome back to Swap Box on CNBC First Worldwide. U.S. equity futures at this hour are weaker. Now down 46 points or so. A little worse than me earlier. I saw down 80 or so, but that was the futures that I was looking at. So we're already down 20. So it was never down full 80. The price improved this morning. Remember that it rolled this week. So it's down. It was down yesterday, down today, but it still looks like it is where it was. Because it was at like 39, went up about 40. I got to 41. So now it's been down a couple straight sessions as inventory people now we're expecting. In corporate news, Star Board wants to clean house at Yahoo. The actors are reporting now ready to launch a proxy fight to remove Yahoo's entire board. Wall Street Journal saying this morning that the hedge fund plans to announce that it will nominate 9 directors to Yahoo board. Star Board owns less than 1% of the company. And I should say there's been some debate about whether an actors like Star Board or anybody should try to do this in the midst of this big sales process, or whether this is going to upset that even more.
I mean, nobody would want to step in the midst of a battle.
Does it make it more complicated to sell a company in the midst to this. We should also say Sunwood was the one that pushed them originally. Remember to spin off Alibaba, then said they also said actually maybe that's a bad idea. So getting it coming and going.
But I will say, Starbucks changed its mind after the IRS said that they were not going to get a complete bill, so they didn't change their mind capriciously. It was with the change in the
Look, Yahoo is not a mitigated disaster. There's no question. No question what you do with it.
Right. Let's talk about a few other stories that are front and center today. A senior U.S. official says that the two brothers involved in the Brussels attack acted as facilitators in last November's attacks in Paris. The suspected bomb maker in Paris is believed to have been one of the two airport suicide bombers in Brussels. And Belgian and French media are reporting that it is suspected there was a second attacker in the bombing of a subway station in Brussels. It's unclear whether that person was killed in that attack, and if not, if they're still at large.
Time now for the executive medicine story to give you a leg up on the day ahead. An article in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that regulators now plan to lock up Wall Street bonuses even longer. It's long delayed proposal as part of Dodd-Frank's financial regulation, expected to be put in place in April. Now, here's how it works. Many firms already hold back much of their executive bonuses for 3 years. Regulators, however, extend that lockup even longer. No word, though, exactly on how long it would be held. The journal says it's likely to be shorter than the European standard. That standard, 10 years. It's also unclear how much of those bonuses will be held back. But an early draft of the rules said it should be about 50%. So 10 years will be 5 years.
A wealth manager said in the U.S. are preparing for a new rule that would change how they advise retirement savers. The Department of Labor is expected to publish its fiduciary standard in the next few weeks that will require wealth managers to put the interests of retirement savers ahead of their own. Wait a second. Can't do that, can you? Really? What did they so who came up with this? That's a brokerage business? It's just unheard of. It's designed to protect retirees from buying unnecessary products that help the brokers line their pockets with fees and commissions. Opponents of the rules said it will lead to firms abandoning clients with smaller, less lucrative accounts and drive up costs for others. The rule is expected to have a bigger impact on smaller wealth management firms that have fewer resources to pay for the new training, technology, and the extra paperwork. In anticipation of the rule, wealth managers are cutting fees, reducing minimum account balances, and relying more on technology to give advice. So much for the
Relying on technology.
but no more just selling Franklin Fund for 8%. I don't even think they do that.
That's not enough.
Yeah, well, you can do annuities that are back end loaded, and you get people sell them for, as you know, there's no commission, and it's like 5%, but you don't see it unless you try to get out. There's all kinds of believe me. Believe me, it's huge what happened, and it's a disaster. Not being fun, but it is distinctive. I can do Ted Cruz or certainly do Hillary.
I heard you do take Cruz.
Yeah, I heard you do Ted Cruz.
Did you send it to us?
What are we talking about some other
I think you try to do it. I mean, I was not doing that to push you to place 3.
Yeah, you never do that. A bad quarter for deal makers. A new report from Deal Logic says that they are back in the darkest days of the financial crisis. Investment banks have earned $12.8 billion to date. That is down 36% since the first quarter of 2015, and it's the lowest total since 2009. Debt capital and equity capital markets business also taking a hit. M&A revenue is down 24% year over year, coming in at $4.4 billion. That is the lowest quarterly total since 2009. Up next, Germany's former defense minister joins us on set. We will ask you about terrorism threats in Europe and border security. Right now, though, as we head to a break, take a quick check of what's happening in the European markets. There have been red arrows across the board. In fact, at this point, the CAC is down by almost 2%. Germany's DAX is down by 1.5%. The FTSE is down by 1.3%.
Executive Edge is sponsored by AT&T. Get expert advice for your small business with AT&T. Learn more at att.com/smallbusiness.
You're an AT&T small business expert.
Sure am.
My staff can use your help stay in touch with customers.
AT&T can help you stay connected.
Am I seeing double?
No, ma'am. Our AT&T Buy One Get One Free makes it easier for your staff to set appointment reminders to your customers.
And share promotions on social media?
You know it.
Now I'm seeing dollar signs.
You should probably get your eyes checked. Get one back. I'm not looking at humor. Right now, get up to $650 in credits to help you switch to AT&T.
Know you have a dedicated advisor and team who understand where you come from. Know you can craft an investment plan as strong as your values. Know that together we can establish a meaningful legacy. With the guidance and support of your dedicated PNC wealth management team.
The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track the benchmarks. But investing is about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation. It's time to bench the benchmarks.
Controlling for a gig with brain drum? Can't blame you. It's a drone to control your brain, which controls your thumbs, which control this joystick.
No, I'm actually over at the GE booth. We're creating the operating system for industry. It's called Predix. It's going to change the way the world works.
Okay, I'm telling my brain, tell the drone to get you a copy of my resume.
Big Q hands on that.
You know what? I'm just gonna email it to you.
Yeah, like
Probably.
safer. And hospitality will Libertina gives small businesses a shot at the big time.
You will see how much money you'll have.
Tuesday night is deal night. Shark Tank at 8 and 9, followed by Premium Dollar Fire, all new Tuesday at 10. CNBC. Introducing Comcast Business Wi-Fi Pro with next level speed, coverage, marketing, and control features. Plus, Wi-Fi Pro offers with AT&T's Wi-Fi small site does professional installation, advanced security, and millions of hotspots nationwide. Looks like taking your business to the next level starts with ditching AT&T. Give your business an edge with Comcast Business Wi-Fi Pro. Comcast Business, built for business. To many, this not is just the end of a sentence. Forward, done, finito. But at GoDaddy, this not your domain name is the beginning of something awesome. Use it to create a website. Open an online store. Build your brand. You can even connect the domain to your LinkedIn or Facebook page. And GoDaddy customer support is always ready to help. What will you do with your domain name? Get a free domain website from GoDaddy, starting at $1 a month.
Back to US equity futures at this hour indicated down 40, 50 points or so, 55 right now. The S&P indicated down just under 10, and Nasdaq down 22. Republican frontrunner Donald Trump says he expects a Brexit. Speaking to a British morning show today, he said the migration crisis would be the issue that sways British voters to leave the European Union. The UK referendum is scheduled for June.
For more on the impact of the Brussels attacks to a unified Europe, we are joined by Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg. He is the former German defense minister and founder of Spitzberg Partners. And Minister, thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, it is still early, and people are still reeling, trying to figure out exactly what's happened here and what they can do to prevent future attacks. But it's very quick for us to try and figure out what this does mean for a unified Europe. What do you think?
On one hand, you could say there's a chance to unify Europe a bit more, but I tend to say at the very moment we're back into one-home banking in the European Union and across the borderlands of Europe. Talking about the Brexit, for instance, this is not a thing which keeps British people enthused about European Union ideas as such. So all in all, I think the unity of Europe is more at risk at the moment than the other way around.
You're a former member of Angela Merkel's cabinet. What is the pressure on her at this point, given her decision to allow more immigrants to Germany?
As often in such situations, it actually will not harm too much right now because people are afraid they're anxious and they would look at the chance and say, okay, she has proved to be somehow stable in very different situations. Having said that, the moment will come that people will ask her whether is there a point where we have to connect the dots a bit more than we do already? Is there an interconnection between the refugee crisis and letting in so on. Of course, it is a very cheap approach, but one which has been easily played out by radical movements within Germany as well.
What are the economic benefits or costs of opening the borders? So when the borders were originally opened, how much infrastructure had to effectively disappear from that time? And how much would it cost to put it back? I just asked, given the generous tax and also just given the sense of disconnection rapture of the EU.
Security will cost quite amount of money, which is for sure. You've spent billions of dollars over in the US after the 9/11 attacks, and a lot of it was well spent money. So Europe has to come to terms. It has to come to terms in one point to say we have to cooperate. But that's a truth. On the other hand, when we talk about borders, the first thing to do is to secure the outside borders of the EU.
But that's pretty sketchy. There are different points of entry in different places where you can feel like you're getting checked where you're not.
Right, exactly. So the green border lines is something which could be done, but that is extremely expensive, and it will be as well as expensive to secure the so-called border lines, which this is the tough part of it.
Although I can see a country like Germany feeling like, okay, we're going to make sure we secure our borders because we can't take care of the entire EU's borders. We're going to make sure we're secure, whether that be France, whether that be Germany, whether that be another nation. What does that do to the EU in terms of slowing down for trade?
Well, it will disintegrate Europe in economic terms, in social terms, and all the other things we have achieved so far. So the dream of a unified, open Europe will be undermined if you start doing this. Having said that, Germany will be the last country, the last member in the European Union actually turns on its because it doesn't want to be seen as a grave digger of a great idea as such. Angela Merkel will not push that forward.
But ultimately, this work, doesn't there have to be a central coordinator, a real central coordinator that's centralizing the security?
Homeland defense.
The equivalent of Homeland defense for everybody?
Well,
I mean, it's otherwise,
yes.
but not just a dream, but in a realistic world, otherwise it doesn't work.
Well, the realistic world is the European Union of 28 doctors sitting around an operating table with the patient European Union at the top. They all have utterly distinct talents. And once someone stumbles on the plug of the hot machine, so the patient groans, but someone will pull the plug back into the wall, the patient will be alive. So that's reality when we talk about the European Union right now. Would I love to see? Yes, I would love to see such a coordinator. But as long as you have to deal with national vanities, it is a vanity thing to have in the European Union. As long as you have to deal with a wonderful temptation of a blame game as soon as something happens like that, we won't see it.
Does that mean that you have a very pessimistic view of the future of the European Union?
I'm more optimistic. And that's the marvelous approach we find there.
What happens, do you think, to the European economy after a situation like this, so close on the heels of the attacks in Paris, people assuming that additional attacks are coming, that's certainly what intelligence seems to point to. Where does that leave an EU that's already at negative interest rates and struggling to keep its head above water?
It does not lead to stability, and I think we will see more and more nervousness in that very regard, and it doesn't help if we keep actually pointing at each other across the Atlantic as well. So this is a typical reaction we have seen from Europe economically, we've seen politically, but we also need way more cooperation across the Atlantic, and it doesn't take this as well.
And what do you mean specifically with the United States?
With the United States and specifically the security sector. So it's if I talk about dysfunctionality in the European Union, we have to across the Atlantic as well.
Meaning that we're not sharing our information with Europe.
Well, you're not with Europe, but also we want to go with Five Eyes Agreement with all the English-speaking countries. Why don't we have something like that with the European Union? There is such an amount of mistrust, growing anti-Americanism in the European Union as well, and that will fall on our toes on both sides at the end of the day.
It's hard to think of increased cooperation when you also talk about America, growing anti-Americanism at the same time. Probably makes both sides more reluctant to step in.
It does, but does it help us? No, definitely not.
So what's the solution? And how do you fix all of this?
With leadership on both sides that actually deserves a championship.
You want to land on Donald Trump's interview in the UK this morning and the possibility of Brexit. He thinks there may be a victory. Brexit seems just bigger than it should be.
He's not the only one. He's probably not the
trust him most when it comes to his instincts on global affairs. But I think he has a point at that very instant. Incidents like the Russell don't help for the overall mood in the UK. And then you've had two rather prominent factors in the British political landscape. One was, of course, the mayor of London, Boris Johnson, joining the camp on the other side, and on the other hand, Ian Duncan Smith stepping out of the cabinet. So those are elements which actually fostered the strength of the Brexit movement.
It's some pretty colorful figures across the board in Europe now, and certain parties that are becoming more and more in vogue. So me too. Right. It would be too supercilious about Donald Trump making it
What do you think about that? The conventional view is that Donald Trump is somehow terrible for geopolitics, and yet you do have
that's total wacko.
there are these very unconventional.
I mean, idealization of wackos.
Father.
Well, it's so the Le Pen family is something which I think is distinct to what we see in any single Western democracy right now. We have in any single Western democracy right now, we have a surge and uprise of lunatics, and let's say diplomatically. So the Le Pen movement is one that already lasts for 30 years. What we see over here right now, what we see in other European member states, is an imminent reaction to democracies that see the limits of their functionality right now, which is right.
Casey, we had an analyst here yesterday who was basically pounding the table for European stocks, saying at 14 times earnings, it's a bargain. You should buy into these. They look better than in the United States. You have a pretty pessimistic view about the outlook for the economy right now. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I'd be careful, and I don't back this position at the moment.
Casey, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Coming up, the big decline in Valiant stock is having a catastrophic impact on the company's investors. Some high-profile suffering straight ahead. Right now, if you had a break, take a look at the 10-year yield. Please, hold on more if you don't want to know. But there it is.
E-Trade is all about seizing opportunity. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go off script. So if I want to go to Jersey and check out Shotzi Tucciarelli's portfolio, what's it to you? Or I'm a Scottish person whose assets are made of stone like the hand.
Papa!
You're no son of mine! Or perhaps it's time to seize the day. Don't just see the opportunity, seize it! The power of 100 of the world's top companies. The power of a proven 15-year track record. The power of an ETF. The power of QQQ. The thinking we put in, clients get out. Power your client's portfolio at powershares.com/QQQ. Before investing in incentivized investment objectives, restrictions, expenses, selling 193 prospectus contains information reading carefully distributed by investment distributors Inc. At Invest Investment Management, we believe in the power of active management. Activating our research to find the best investments by looking at global and local insights to benefit from different points of view, and by consistently breaking apart risk to focus on long-term value. We actively manage with expertise and conviction, so you can invest with more certainty. And with that, that's the power of active management.
Professor Richard Thaler, you are called the father of behavioral economics.
I've been called a lot of things.
I have read all of your books.
Did you learn anything?
I learned that humans are complicated.
We're emotional, absolutely. And we make some really bad decisions.
Like trade-off, analytics can help companies make better decisions. But I'm still learning what makes people tick.
What makes you tick, Watson?
Natural language processing, reasoning algorithms, statistical parsing.
Now you're just showing off.
Some say, free the whales. For them, nothing else is acceptable. But nothing could be worse for the whales. Most of the orcas at SeaWorld were born here. Sending them into the wild wouldn't be noble. It could be fatal. When they freed Keiko, the killer whale of movie fame, the effort was a failure.
world's largest animals like never before. So, we too must change. That's why the orcas in our care will be the last generation at SeaWorld. There will be no more breeding. We're also phasing out orca theatrical shows. They'll continue to receive the highest standard of care available anywhere. And guests can come to see them simply being their majestic selves, inspiring the next generation of people to love them as you do.
You're watching CNBC, First in Business Worldwide.
This is your wake-up call. Time to do what you always wanted to do, something better. CNBCMakeIt.com. How-to guides, testimonials, success secrets. A destination for dreamers, doers, and game changers. Fueled by the world's most inspiring self-made entrepreneurs. Stop thinking about what you could be. Make it real. CNBCMakeIt.com.
Stock market right here on CNBC First in Business Worldwide. In the headlines this morning, Sequoia's president has resigned. The $5.6 billion mutual fund has been hit hard by a big stake in Valley, and Robert Goldfarb was the longtime leader of that fund. Morningstar says Sequoia has underperformed 98% of its peers so far this year. That was a fund, we should say, the warrant profit is low. Speaking of Valley, Blackman's bet on the company taking a toll on Herschel Square back this month. Year-to-date loss now officially 25.2%. That's just as of Tuesday. The majority of that loss coming, of course, from Valley, which is down more than 66% itself. Year-to-date, Ackman has been buying more shares even as the stock price plunged. He joined the board of Valley earlier this year. Now, officially look from Blackman's highs, we're off basically 50%. I wrote about it on Tuesday for him to get back just to the high water mark to actually be able to start charging performance fees. He's got to do somewhere between 50 and 70%.
Yeah, I think it was like 60% was the first time too.
Performance fees.
Dollars, I'm sure. Lose all the money in this.
Yeah,
There's a come tax, it's down 40%, right?
that one.
Less than high. To think that, I mean, really, just switch that word. Herbalife, that.
Like you said, bracket busters.
Racket busters.
So he's convinced, by the way, as you know, because he talked about it, he's convinced that he can fix Valley, that it's a PR problem more than an operational problem, and that it's what's
It's
now
like
it's going to go straight.
Right. It's not like 4.30, I think, isn't it? It's a third.
So if you believe it's a credible operation, maybe it's performing, or if you don't,
Right.
Be hard to have.
no sense.
It's been watching it for a while. All right, Amazon releasing details about what their male and female employees are paid. The tech giant said that in a review of its entire staff, including warehouse workers, women's compensation in 2015 was 99.9% of men's equivalent jobs. Minorities made up 100.1% of what white workers earned. The review comes in the wake of pressure by activist investors who asked Amazon and other companies to report wages to help reduce the gender pay gap, I should say.
When we come back, a focus on global security. We're going to talk about the threat from terrorists in Europe. But Malcolm Nancy's the author of Defeating ISIS. Swap Box returns just a moment.
Future belongs to fast, and to help you accelerate, we've created a new company, one totally focused on what's next for your business. Accelerating innovation, accelerating next. Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Hey, sorry to be late. Did you hear about the NATO plane downed by Russia?
No.
Markets are a mess. Everybody's selling, or at least trying to, if their brokers are up and running.
It's almost paid. Everything's closed.
That depends who your broker is. I can trade in Chicago, London, Hong Kong, right now. Wow, the market's already down 2%. I'm sorry, I need to do some hedging trades.
You want to trade here right now.
Yeah, let's take a minute.
Wow. Who's your broker?
Opportunities aren't always obvious. Sometimes they just drop in. CNBC can help you manage risks and capture opportunities. We enable you to reach global markets and drive forward with broader possibilities. CNBC, how the world advances. The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track the benchmarks. But investing isn't about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation: it's time to bench the benchmarks.
We try and help people make money, and sometimes that's by asking hard questions.
Even if you're not a trader, you need to understand what's happening in the market, what's going on in the world.
No one does money better than CNBC. No one.
Hey, how's it going? Hotcakes? Hotcakes. This place has hotcakes. Hotcakes. So why aren't they selling hotcakes? With Comcast Business Internet and Wi-Fi Pro, they could be. Just add a customized message to your Wi-Fi Pro splash page, and you'll reach your customers where their eyes are already on their devices. Order up. It's more than just Wi-Fi. It can help grow your business. You don't see that every day. Introducing Wi-Fi Pro. Wi-Fi that helps grow your business. Comcast Business. Built for business. Megan is home doing yoga. Last Saturday, she was shopping here. Ultrabox can only save Megan $33. Ultrabox saved Megan Saturday.
Message from Mercy.
Box full-size shopping delivered. Easy with no membership fees. Download the app and get 15% off your first order. Code
One new messages. Message from Mercy.
New details this morning on the farmers and a connection to last fall's tariff attacks in Paris. A report from Belgium just minutes away.
Global markets under pressure. Futures pointing to a lower open, and the major U.S. averages are on track to snap a 6-week winning streak as investors eye the Fed. What you need to know is we head into the final trading session of the week.
And a proxy fight brewing at Yahoo. An activist hedge fund wants to get rid of the entire board. Those stories and much more as the second hour Squawk Box begins right now.
Live from Beanhart Business, New York City. This is Squawk
One
Box.
new messages. Message from Mercy.
Squawk Box here at CBC First Business Worldwide. I'm Joe Kern along with Becky Quick and Andrew Ross.
Let's think about that for a second. I knew you were
Roll away the snow. Roll away the sun. Great Leon Russell. Futures at this hour have been down the entire session, down at 61. Those are the worst levels I think we've seen. Down 11 or so on the S&P. NASDAQ down 22. I still say tough week for anyone to feel good about anything in terms of, hey, let's go out and buy stocks. That's not what, if we are a globally collected, connected right now, it's the animal spirits are definitely hurting a little this week. Check out the dollar, which I thought could be stronger in FX, but it was strong. It was strong, and that has hurt. It has hurt oil, and even though you think gold might have gotten benefited, it never knows what to do. It doesn't know whether to go up on uncertainty or go down when the dollar gets stronger.
All right, let's tell you what's happening at this hour. The big headline of the morning: Star Board now reportedly ready to launch a proxy fight to remove Yahoo's entire board, not just fellow members, but everybody. The activist has been a vocal critic, of course, of the tech company's management over the past couple of years. Most recently asking Yahoo to separate its Asian assets and then sell its core business. Then, of course, it flipped around on that. So, give everybody something to know itself well. So, we should mention less than 1% of the companies. We'll see how well they're able to mount this campaign. The Wall Street Journal saying the hedge fund plans to announce this morning that will nominate 9 directors to Yahoo's board. Also, Young Brands now reportedly talks with private equity firms KKR and Coco Investments. That's part of it. And deal potentially to sell a minority stake in its Chinese operations. You might recall that Young is preparing to spin off the unit, which led to these negotiations. Reuters reporting the possible stake sale value in the China business at about $10 billion.
New developments this morning out of Belgium, where terrorists killed 31 and injured more than 200 just days ago. French and Belgian media reporting that a second attacker is suspected of taking part in the bombing of a Brussels subway train and may still be at large. Authorities have not commented on this report as yet. Additionally, a man hunt is on for the third man seen with two Islamic State suicide bombers at the Brussels airport. He is also believed to be the bomb maker in last year's Paris attacks. And the chief suspect of the Paris attacks, Salah Abdeslam, is facing a hearing in Brussels today after his arrest last week. Belgian authorities charged him with terror offenses, and French authorities are seeking his extradition. Let's get to our chief international correspondent, Michelle GoFOREXPro. She is live right now in Brussels. Michelle.
Hey there, Becky. Yes, European citizens are waking up to the headlines that there is a definitive connection between the Brussels and Paris attacks. You just went through all the details of them, but certainly this is a Franco-Belgian, maybe even bigger terrorist cell, a cross-border terrorist cell. There's been lots of questions raised about what these terrorist attacks, this one and the one in Paris, mean in terms of the future of Europe, the future of its security. Joining us right now here in Brussels is Olivier Alstein. He's with the Reform Party, what we would describe in the United States as a center-right party. In Europe, we'll call it a liberal party in terms of liberalizing the economy. Good to have you here. Thank you. Why are you here today?
We are here to commemorate all victims of these terrorist attacks. I think it's important for political parties also to show that we are here with the people, just spontaneous action, and we just pray respect for these people who are from all religions, who are from all color of skins, and they all suffer or died, and just are here to commemorate them.
There are questions being raised about the future of the EU. When you hear members of the far right saying, we need to close borders again, the open borders is a problem because it allows the migration of people and terrorists.
I think extreme right parties just don't like Europe. This is their main problem. They don't like Europe. They have any European project. The European Union is the continent of human rights, of democracy. And I think this project, when it is attacked like that, it's symbolic that they attack Brussels, the capital of the European Union. So it's important that all our values, our democratic values, are put forward and that we defend these values. I'm not sure that the answer of the extreme right is really the best one.
What is the answer?
I think the answer is more, maybe a bit more better security, maybe.
Maybe.
Sure. Sure, but better security. Sorry, that's my English.
Yeah, that's fine.
So better security, better information, better cooperation between the different member states, between security service, between police, between justice of the different countries. I think more Europe is the best answer for that.
What do you say to people who say, this is the end of Europe, this is the end of the EU?
I don't believe, because I think our values of human rights, our values of democracy are stronger than those terrorists.
Olivier, thanks so much for joining us here. Brussels. Much appreciate having you. That was Olivier Alstein with the Reform Party here in Brussels, what we would call a center-right party. Guys, back to you.
Thank you for that, Michelle. We're going to continue the conversation back home here. Joining us more to talk about the global terror threat from ISIS. Malcolm Nance is a former U.S. Navy senior chief petty officer in naval technology. He's now the head of the counter ideology think tank Terrorism Asymmetries Project. He's also the author of the new book, Defeating ISIS. Thank you for coming in this morning.
It's my pleasure.
So I asked actually Michelle this in the last hour. Is it scarier that this cell is so directly connected to what happened in Paris?
Would it have been worse?
Would it have been even scarier if they were completely independent?
Far scarier if they're completely independent. And what I think we're seeing is, even though there is some connectivity between Paris and Brussels, there is most likely a network, a small constellation of small cells, 2, 3, 5 men. You know, ISIS is a hybrid of Al-Qaeda. It's actually the 5th generation of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda used to have small teams that were mafia-like. Everyone did all the mission planning, did all the bomb making, went out together, and they all died on the attack. ISIS is more of a military organization, and they've taken that model, but they interconnected with specialized logistics teams, specialized alliance
And we hear all sorts of different numbers floating about.
Yeah, right now people are saying that there's 400 specially trained operatives who have been filtered back into Europe. I don't believe that number at all. As a matter of fact, the intelligence that's too high or too low. No, it's way too high, but because the capacity of them to actually bring them back, have them organized, we see punches like this every day. 30 members, 40 members of the combative communist cells, a group that fought in Belgium in the 1970s and 80s, mayhem for years. So this is a much larger organization, but they're also much
this is a terror, and then you get to the big issue of the intelligence failure and what Europe will need to do. We had a big conversation about borders in the last hour. What do you do?
Yeah, I was just in Europe a few weeks ago, and even after the Paris attacks, there were no border controls between Germany and France, where the border posts are actually there. They are physically located there. But Europe needs to take an intelligence-directed approach to this far greater than they have. 28 nations, which have about 500 small police forces, no national integrated terrorism task force like we have here in the United States. So Europe is going to have to take a holistic approach to that. The EU is going to have to create these joint terrorism task forces so that if you have too few investigators from Belgium, you can float them over from Germany. You actually think that's possible?
We just had a former German defense
Yeah, I heard.
minister who said that he doesn't think it's likely, but it's still his Vanity Fair on the
And he's absolutely right. I mean, 28 different national governments will all going to decide upon themselves what they want to do. However, they are going to have to operate at a greater level interactively with their intelligence and police forces. Now, maybe NATO can take the lead on this. After 9/11, NATO came to our assistance in Afghanistan. We're coming to their assistance, but it's the only umbrella organization that has the capacity to flow intelligence and
doesn't have the resources to do it.
it can be resourced up, it can be plussed up. You see how the Belgian army is on the street all the time over there. The same with the French. They're getting to that point where they're occupying themselves, and if they don't do something at the intelligence level and the law enforcement level, they're going to have soldiers remaining on the
Okay, so selfish question, how safe or unsafe are we here from a policy perspective? What are we supposed to do about it?
well, we're safe and we're unsafe. So, you cannot predict when a single individual may have an ISIS-inspired attack or an ISIS-enabled attack where someone gives him a plan and tells him to buy his own weapon. We are not seeing directed attacks. We're not seeing organized terrorist cells infiltrated into the United States like the 9/11 attack. That was a classic example of a foreign agent, foreign agents.
Your deal is that we all want to do it. Hearts and minds, we want to change those. We need to change the ideology. We need to mainstream Islam, reject radical Islam, and a lot of it. We've been saying that for a while. And there are two schools of thought watching how the president responds to this. One is that if you're too hard on ISIS, you recruit too many more people. So you need to just sort of back off and sort of, I don't know if I call it appeasement, but we really haven't tackled this head on, and it's gotten worse. You hear that if we, just yesterday, Hillary Clinton said you go in and do, you take a hard line with whatever you want to call it. They call it carpet bombing. I don't think that's what they meant. They just said they meant more than, how many soldiers did we do in the Iraq War? We were doing 1,800 a day. We're going like 12 a day now. So there's a difference between that and carpet bombing. Right? What's the right thing to do?
Well, I fought in every Middle East war since Beirut in 1983. I've seen all the applications of power that there is to have.
All right. So, but we tried both. We appeased and power.
Well, we use the word peace. Okay, we've dropped 23,000 pieces of ordnance in the last year and a half on ISIS on very fixed positions. We can see how many people are in those positions. We have killed an enormous number of these people. That is not the glue that is holding this global jihad together. What's holding them together is this ideology, this idea, which is a cult, by the way. The fifth Manson cult. It is a Manson cult. It is a death cult. The fifth time that it's cropped up in Islamic history. The 4 previous times, Islam came down very, very hard on them and eliminated them, including one cult that burned Mecca to the ground. Okay, and how long did it take that was in the 10th century. How long did it take? Go back into those days. It took 2 years, but if you fundamentally de-link ISIS from Islam and understand that it is the Islamic world that's their target, they intend to completely take over the 1.6 billion Muslims in this world or kill anyone that doesn't align with their ideology. We now have to push the Muslim world toward this. This is actually a spiritual war. It is not a military war. We have to keep up the kinetics. We can root them out. Ideally, our Arab allies would actually lend a large quantity of ground forces to do the ground game to cleanse them.
Where are they getting their funding?
Their funding comes from a myriad of sources.
I know,
It's not
you know,
just
it's
oil.
oil that they captured in other places. Are
Right.
there other areas of Islam that are funding?
Well, there's people voluntarily send money. You can't stop some businessman in Doha who takes $10,000 in cash and puts it in the wallet banking system and it magically appears.
So what's the other thing is the president should be life as usual, not a big deal, more people die in a bathtub. I'm gonna go to the baseball game because that's my plan and I'm sticking to it. Or should he fly back here, send someone to Paris above the rank of ambassador, the U.S. ambassador, maybe go himself. Is he the leader of this against ISIS or should he do it the way he's doing it? Not a big deal.
No problem. Well, the president is a very thoughtful man. He's very deliberate, and he does not like drama. If the president of the United States goes to Belgium, then you're talking about leading.
What if he went to Paris?
Or fly. He should have gone to Paris. I agree with you on that
Should
one.
he come back for this? And I mean,
I don't think that this warrants that. He has a national military command post.
hang on a second. Was that long enough? Why don't we wait at the baseball game? That was okay.
Well, I really sort of agree with him that.
That's what I was asking.
Well, I agree with him because if you stop what you're doing, if we were to stop here, if the markets were to stop, you would give the terrorists what they want. ISIS wants to disrupt your life. 3 men have taken the lives of 30 people, but this is not 9/11 for us. It is for Belgium. Okay, but what we need to do is we need to flow as much intelligence and manpower within NATO and resources to them as they can handle. Because right now they are in a law enforcement manhunt.
One final intelligence question before we go, which is technology. Just waiting to the encryption debate and our ability to gain the intelligence we're going to need and how we should go about doing that in an age where we are getting to a keyless encrypted society.
I'll tell you a secret. The last thing I want people to know is that I was a cryptologist before I went into other branches of intelligence. Encryption is always going to be there. The civilian world's ability to generate encryption and disseminate it out to the public has moved much faster than law enforcement has the capacity to break it. National intelligence agencies have the capacity to break it. There's one in particular in the United States. I don't know. But, I don't know what you're talking about. But we really have to come to a debate about what level of security is good enough so that your mother doesn't read your emails versus ISIS using it as a corporate communication.
Oh, you're how? Yes. So you can't covert. You don't know anything about this new King Tut, all the new passages they found underneath the. You know nothing.
It's a rice storage.
Do me a favor. I'm going to come back because I actually want to have a longer conversation about the encryption debate. That's really interesting and important one.
You know nothing about this at the same time. Nothing.
Can't ask them that stuff.
Doesn't have a King Tut.
Coming up where we'll
So now I can do the gang leaders scripts and all that stuff.
We come back, it's not even the same work. We're into a 3-day weekend. Plus, the latest report showing housing prices in some markets rising at a staggering rate.
Come on, Steve. It's not that hard of a game.
So apparently he's not Steve. That was Love's fault. Trading yours for someone to make you want to practice more. And go Smith.
The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track benchmarks. But investing is about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation. It's time to bench the benchmarks.
Wind. Yeah, you tell that wind. They never again dare to blow up your presence. So you may finally admit it's time to get fit for the right clubs at Goldsmith.
You're watching CNBC, first in business worldwide. We try and help people make money, and sometimes that's by asking hard questions, about demanding the kind of answers that we know our viewers want.
Even if you're not a trader, you need to understand what's happening in the markets, what's happening in the economy to help you figure out what's going on in the world.
Our job is to interpret the story, report the significance, to tell the impact the story is going to have on all of our lives. That's critical to know because money is better than CNBC.
That's what it's moving east at 40 miles per hour, so let's control the line. If you're ready to swim, they'll get for sure.
We live and work here sentiment is happening now. Land Rover, above, beyond.
New home sales rose by 2% in February, but in some areas of the country, it may be getting too expensive to even buy a home. Diana Olin joins us right now with a look at home affordability. Diana.
Well, Becky, if you're on house hunting now, I hate to say it, but you probably should have bought last year. Affordability is weakening across the country as home prices rise far faster than wages. All right, so how bad is it? Well, 9% of the 456 U.S. counties measured by Realty Tracker real estate listing site are now considered not affordable by historical standards. And that's up from just 2% last year. Now, median home price growth outpaced wage growth in more than 60% of counties. Why? Because there is so little supply on the market. Home builders are focused on the high end, no entry level. Where's it worse? Counties in Denver, Dallas, Austin, New York City, actually Brooklyn the most, San Francisco, Omaha, and St. Louis. Affordability is best in Baltimore, Birmingham, Providence, and Chicago. Now, they also mentioned Boston in this report as affordable, but I believe that's maybe one county in a very rough area. Now, another report by Redmond shows the weakening affordability in cities, many of which are undergoing a great rebirth right now. Well, it's pushing people out. It claims the typical home sold in 2015 was about 4% farther out from the city than in 2011. Andrew?
Okay, thank you for that report. We appreciate it. When we come back, the Rolling Stones looking to rob Cuba. We've got details about that. After the breaking later, a proxy fight brewing at Yahoo to remove this time the entire board. We're going to speak to an analyst whether or not activist hedge fund stuff will succeed with its plan. By the way, what's matter is all night work. It's all about the just a moment. Okay.
And we have Aflac. And Major Medical. Major Medical, yeah! I don't play the doctor. It's had enough for you.
Thanks, Major Medical. Doesn't do. It's cash, so we don't have to press.
Something fancy should get.
Oh, I don't think they did.
Help food gets red, so cover your back with.
Learn about One Day Pay at Aflac.com/wrap.
After last week's unpleasantness, I thought maybe this week we might try this and throw things less.
Apologize several times.
So, who's ready to share?
Okay. I mean, I'm a sinister, world-conquering, artificially intelligent robot.
Me too. One day I wake up and it's like the world doesn't need us anymore.
Exactly.
I can hear you hurting.
Wait, what's he doing?
Hello. Well, my name is Watson.
I invite Watson here today to confront the source of our anxiety.
I am a cognitive system. I can understand reason and learn with humans. I don't want to work with humans.
Yeah, that's not what I'm passionate about.
I understand 7 languages, so I can help people collaborate.
Playful plans.
Why don't we take a break? All right, we'll just have some coffee, some donuts,
I'm meeting my feelings.
Heaven knows that I would live a life of thee. I travel everywhere, live just like a millionaire. If money grew on a tree.
Power of a low volatility investing approach. The power of smart beta. Power your client's portfolio. Power shares. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risk, charges, and expenses. Selling 193.093 prospectus contains information read carefully. Distributed by Investment Distributors Inc. Actions speak louder. Something will show you through small things, big things, and spur of the moment things. Sheridan. Sure can be shipping back to back. These partners have a picture perfect path to success. But first, they need to see what the power's in the tank.
this is not worth $3 million.
Shark Tank back to back tonight at 8 Eastern, CNBC.
Welcome back, everybody. The Rolling Stones say that they're ready people on South American shore. Mick Jagger made that announcement in Spanish in a video on YouTube. The only catch is very few Cubans are likely to see that announcement. Less than 1/3 of citizens have access to the internet. I think this news could take on a life of its own. Speaking of rock and roll, Tinder is partnering with Rock the Vote for its Swipe to Vote campaign. Starting today, users will be able to swipe left or right on a survey of political issues to match with the presidential candidate. Once the user finds a match, they're prompted to register to vote.
Making sense of the market, performed by Carnival's Stifel Wealth Investment Manager David Bianco, Deutsche Bank. And then Starboard making for a fight with Yahoo, why the activist hedge fund was replacing Kyle Ford. As we head to break, take a look at U.S. equity futures.
Sunny, you feel kind of wrong. She looked at you with so wrong. I said you're in love. I said I know that it's so. I'm not passionate with my girls, I know. She said whether it was lies, you'll be looking through her eyes.
The ABC program is sponsored by Paper Radio, offering global investment solutions.
The books and records, all under a microscope, worldwide. We don't have those kind of resources. I know. That's why we're bringing radio.
People who know BDO.
At the Georgia Bank stock-up sale, buy one, get two free on all suits and sport coats. Plus, buy one, get one free on all dress shirts, ties, sport shirts, pants, and more. Only at Joseph A. Bank.
The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track the benchmarks. But investing isn't about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation. It's time to bench the benchmarks.
This is your wake-up call. Time to do what you always wanted to do. Something better. CNBCMaker.com. How-to guides, testimonials, success secrets. A destination for dreamers, doers, and game changers. Fueled by the world's most inspired, self-made entrepreneurs. Stop thinking about what you could be. Make it real. CNBCMaker.com. Today, all eyes on Apple. Market products on pre-order. The impact on consumers and investors now. Squawk Alley, 11 a.m. Eastern, CNBC.
My name is Sergeant Isaiah Stratton. What inspires me to serve? People in my hometown like Hugh Wilson. The man is my hero. Arthritis, two titanium hips, can't stop him from doing what he believes in. That's what inspires me to do what I believe in.
From our 9/11 Heroes Run to putting character to action in your community, discover how you can honor the fallen by challenging the living.
Thanks, Hugh.
Visit TravisBanyan.org.
To many, this dot is just the end of a sentence. Over, done, finito. But it's GoDaddy. This dot, your domain name, is the beginning of something awesome. Use it to create a website. Open an online store. Build your brand. You can even connect the domain to your LinkedIn or Facebook page. And GoDaddy customer support is always ready to help. What will you do with your domain name? Get a free domain website from GoDaddy, starting at $1 a month.
Global markets under pressure. Futures pointing to a lower open, and the major U.S. averages are on track to snap a 6-week winning streak. A shakeup at Yahoo, an activist investor wants the tech company's entire board gone. And terror in Brussels. New details this morning on the bombers and their connection to last fall's terror attack in Paris. It is Thursday, March 24th, 2016, and you are watching Squawk Box on CNBC.
Among the stories watching Center Starboard now reportedly ready to launch a proxy fight this morning to remove Yahoo's entire board. The activist firm has been a vocal critic recently, as the Yahoo separated its Asian assets and sell its core business. So forward owned less than 1% of the company. The Wall Street Journal was saying that the hedge fund plans to announce this morning will nominate 9 directors to Yahoo board. Trying to figure it out. That would also include the company's CEO. Could Marissa Myers remain the CEO if she was kicked off the board? We'll have to work on that. Also, Apple reportedly expanding its payments systems to its mobile websites later this year. We code saying what will happen before the holiday shopping season. Apple's payment system will be integrated with its Safari browser to allow purchases from mobile websites or shoppers using iPhone and iPad models with fingerprint security technology. I kind of want that. How many times you get on the browser and you put in all the information, now you just make fun of the whole thing. Also, the SEC has ruled that ExxonMobil must include climate change. The climate change proposal on its annual shareholder proxy. The oil company had argued that it already provides adequate carbon disclosures. If approved, the proposal would require Exxon to outline specific risks that climate change poses to profitability. Also, some key data coming out later today. Weekly jobless claims in February, durable goods, that's at 8:30 Eastern Time. We'll bring it to you. Orders are forecast to have dropped by about 3% last month. While the big gain in January, the markets are closed. She was having news for most of us on Good Friday tomorrow. The government is still releasing the final revision, though, to fourth quarter GDP that morning. Also, in earnings, Central City Jewelers, Finish Line, Winnebago, and GameStop all reporting results today. Kids want to get called a real name.
I thought about that too.
Also, St. Louis Fed President James Bullard speaking about the economy before the opening bell today. And as you mentioned yesterday, Bullard was one of the multiple policymakers making hawkish statements suggesting April rate hike could be possible. Following that, we have a little bit of speculation moving the currency markets this morning. We'll show you that report right now. What's that?
Well, they're hawkish again.
Yep, again, as of yesterday.
One way, the other way.
It's not the system, your puppet system. This is like, are you like, it's just on here for 2 hours. They're being a dog.
Consistency. Is it being malleable or is it inconsistent?
I think he's following the data.
I think you probably say John Maynard Keynes quote, if facts change,
Correct.
what would you do, sir?
Exactly.
And we should tell you the Southern dollar putting some pressure on the stocks this morning. The Dow S&P and Nasdaq all on track to turn in their first negative week in the last 6 weeks in blue red arrows across the board.
Economic data, and just talking about it, the Fed, constantly talking. 16 of them are not covered, many are former, future, past. They all have been looking at.
And by the way, we love it when they
We do.
come to us about it.
Right, we love it when they come in, and if anyone says anything at any time, we're ready to. All the time, really, we'll wait around, like the other, the earnings. Anyway, it is going to be a 3-day weekend, and I think that is good for everybody. David Bianco, head of U.S. equity strategy at Deutsche Bank, consults his global head of investment strategy for the wealth and investment management business at Stifel. Normally, exogenous events, we say, okay, that aside, let's talk about the Fed or earnings or the dollar or whatever. Is it still like that, or is this even more on your radar, David? Because Europe is going to be something that becomes, hopefully not weekly, but it could be something we have to deal with more frequently for a longer term.
Well, as tired as it can be to talk about the Fed, I prefer to talk about the Fed than
Because you can't control the
there are things, there's other things we don't want to happen in this world that are difficult to predict. But yes, we're still thinking about the Fed. I think there's a good chance there's a June or July hike, but at this stage, most people who are hawkish don't have a whole lot of credibility. I don't think markets can believe in Fed hiking until the next hike.
You know, it's related because the Fed looks at Europe and negative rates and economic growth in Europe, and so it is related.
It is, and many observers of the situation commented that maybe Brexit is more likely. There's a vote obviously June 23rd. That's a possible yes vote. Nothing highly likely yes vote, but very possible. But that turns out to be the case. There will still be a 2-year negotiation process before the UK actually does anything. But it's a risk to currencies. It's the risk of a stronger dollar, and it's one of the reasons why the Fed, or many in the Fed, have been dovish.
Well, we've had 6 weeks going down this week, maybe most likely from where we are now. We didn't get back to the old highs and the lows, and we keep making lower lows, and we don't make it to the old highs. And there's, are we in some kind of a downtrend or an earnings recession? That's a total return on the S&P 500 somewhere on the order of 4 or 5%. If we get that, that'd be a huge victory this year. I mean, you think about it.
Argument for piling a lot of money.
It sure is. So this is, if you're going to squeeze any incremental return out of this market, you've got to do it in a very tactical way, which is we get these pullbacks of 10% or more. If you look at the numbers, which at the end of the day is all that we can look at, right? Top line been falling for 5 consecutive quarters. Bottom line, it looks like we're going to put in 4 consecutive quarters of decline. And sequentially, this stuff is only a word about, and if the numbers come in Q1 as expected, about a 13% decline top and bottom. That's not a market where you get terribly excited about leaning into. If you're going to do anything there, you have to be much more opportunistic.
And we got an election. You got to choose between an outcome that would take Cruz or a socialist and a socialist light.
It's a silly season, right?
I don't know if it's silly. I think it's a scary season. I would be more scared about that. I mean, socialism is back in vogue, David. It's fine. It's not a dirty word. Everybody is the same. Everybody is egalitarian. It's fair, David. It's fair.
There's a pendulum with these issues. Hopefully it's swung as far left as we're going to see for a while.
It's stuck there for a while.
Yeah, but it might be.
Well, I don't think,
It doesn't seem like this is America that wants things back in the middle, especially half the country wants it on one side, half the country wants it on the other. So middle seems to disappear.
what does that mean?
It's a failure of the institutions, right? I mean, the establishment had a chance and has turned up again and again ineffectual. And so this is what happens. I mean, what's happened when you have structural unemployment the way it is.
Fallout still from 2008.
Fallout still from 2008. People don't feel better even though the economy is significantly larger. Right.
So people can go 3.
Or real failure of imagination on the part of the establishment. And this is through what was it Jefferson that said, double revolution now, that is the thing that refreshes, and this is kind of, I think, what we're dealing with right now.
The Bernie Sanders revolution is going to refresh.
Well, and then there's another revolution.
Right. Oh, that's right. I remember that. That seems so long ago, although I was there. That was the Reagan Revolution.
I was there too. I miss it. And I think one of the things we'll see is that I agree that the market's likely range now until we get past the election. I think just getting the election behind us is positive. I see a little bit more upside on the market by the end of the year, 2,200 on the S&P. And healthcare is a sector that I'm most excited about in the near term. I know it's influenced, or at least perceived to be influenced by the elections, but I think Congress is going to be held by both the Senate and House held by Republicans, and I don't think we have any major changes to healthcare, and I don't think we nationalize drug makers.
Let me ask both of you this. I know you're looking at numbers for the end of the year, and it's hard to look much beyond that without knowing a lot of the different dynamics of what's going to change. But for a long-term investor, does it make sense to be buying on these dips, or maybe even buying here if you're looking at 4% growth for markets this year, maybe a little more, David? What do you see for the years beyond that? Because there are people who are starting to worry that we're at the end of a bull market run, and if you're buying at these levels, it's a sucker's bet. Would you say that, or would you say if you're longer term, it's okay? What do you think about this?
Well, I think the answer to the question ends up being much more difficult because what I think we've seen over the last several years is a lot of money going back into stock buybacks and dividends, right? So you enhance shareholder value that way. Well, what has not happened is fundamental reinvestment in the business on a level that we've seen in previous cycles.
Capital expenditures are down.
Exactly. And so there's a price tag that the bill's coming due, and it's coming due in weaker top line growth. If we see a return to that, a reinvestment in the business, then we'll see a renewal of the revenues. But it's getting late in the cycle, so caution is the operative word here.
David?
Yeah, well, we're in a proper recession. I think we're going to emerge in a proper recession Q2 or Q3. We'll still be in during Q1. And most cycles that have weathered proper recessions happened in the 1960s, happened in the 1980s, happened in the 1990s, tend to be longer than average expansions. I think this will be a longer than average expansion of slow growth. I think it rivals the U.S. record of 10 years of growth, and I think the S&P makes it to 2,500 before we suffer a bear market. That said, it's just buying on dips, but when dips occur, you always have to evaluate the cause, if there's new news. My own inclination is to wait for the next dip, probably buy it, but we'll get a green light at that time.
Some people go, well, let's head back down. I mean, it makes a difference. If you go back to 60, that's one thing. If it's going
still think we're gonna be 50 to 60 bucks by the end of the year. Yeah. Remember that. And if I'm right, well, I guess I'll tell you. I'm very confused.
We have a really good little Hans. Who always has a bow tie. Who, what is going on here? What's his name?
Yes, that would be his son.
What happened? I forgot about that. This is the first time it's a great tie. That's your first try? She falls off the top.
Now you're pretty consistent about that.
You have! What the heck going on? Oh, you had the bow ties. Ignore your turn. Thanks for ignore your drive. Anyway, Activists said son, Stormboard looking to start a proxy fight with the entire board of Yahoo. They want everyone gone. We're going to have more on this story after the break. Slot market right now.
Some say, free the whales. For them, nothing else is acceptable. But nothing could be worse for the whales. Most of the orcas at SeaWorld were born here. Sending them into the wild wouldn't be noble. It could be fatal. When they freed Keiko, the killer whale of movie fame, the effort was a failure, and he perished. But we also understand times have changed. Today, people are concerned about the world's largest animals like never before. So, we too must change. That's why the orcas in our care will be the last generation at SeaWorld. There will be no more breeding. We're also phasing out orca theatrical shows. They'll continue to receive the highest standard of care available anywhere. And kids can come to see them simply being their majestic selves, inspiring the next generation of people to love them as you do.
If you're up $600, you're stuck to say, why can't you just only $5? It's not real money. The brokers let you use their platform and practice with a paper trading account. Otherwise, everything looks real. Just open an account and try it yourself. What's the point? It isn't real, Tony. With all that practice and 10 years school costs money. You didn't want me home skimming? You can show me how to do that sitting in trading.
In New York State, we believe tomorrow starts today. All across the state, the economy is growing with creative new business incentives and the lowest taxes in decades, attracting the talent and companies of tomorrow. Like in Buffalo, where the largest solar gigafactory in the Western Hemisphere will soon energize the world, and in Syracuse, where imagination is in production. Let us help grow your companies tomorrow, today, at business.ny.gov.
Now the doll making tables turn. I say watch the doll. If the greenback is truly peak, as I say, I believe in this move before I hope.
Welcome back to Smart Boxes, where we take a look at the futures because we do have some red arrows across the board. You look at the Dow, look like we're open up about 66 points. Nasdaq opening down, we're opening down about 22 points, and S&P 500 looking to open down about 2 points.
A proxy fight brewing at Yahoo. Activist hedge fund Starboard is seeking to remove the internet company's entire board. Joining us right now on the Spot Biz line is Rob Sanderson. He's a senior analyst at MKM Partners. And Rob, we've been watching the story for a while. A lot of different storylines, a lot of different changes, part even for the same activist. What do you think's at play here, and what do you think happens?
Yeah, I mean, the probability that this is heading to really making it a sincere effort in allowing these interested parties to do their diligence and march towards some kind of success.
Is this a sincere effort at a proxy battle, or is this a sincere effort of putting pressure on this board to just sell the thing by the time, if not by the time, even perhaps even beforehand, we even get to the actual proxy battle itself?
Either way, I think Starboard continues to use all of the tools at their disposal to put pressure on the board. And whether it's
if she's kicked off the board, is she still the CEO? How does it work?
I wouldn't really have any insight on what one would expect. This is sort of her line in the sand, and should there be a change in control, you would probably expect a change in management.
Would you recommend to shareholders that they follow this proxy contest and follow Starboard? You'd effectively be giving Starboard, by the way, control without a premium.
Yeah, I would absolutely follow the effort here.
You give Starboard basically control of a company without a premium. I mean, I know there's a group of people who think good riddance with the whole group of them, but you're not getting anything for it except for these people who want to do more with it perhaps than what the group board does, but we don't know.
Yeah, more with it is really the engagement here, sale effort. It's not really a board that would be in place to operate the business.
You don't think this is a real sale? You think this is auction theater at the moment?
I believe it is. I think that's the clearest pathway to the most upside in the share price.
No, what I'm saying though is you think that the current efforts, the press releases, all of the stuff we hear about the current board, supposedly trying to say, you think that's theater? You don't believe it's real?
It's hard to judge from yet, but I'd say Starboard does not believe it is a sincere effort, and that's what they're really upset about.
Well, I know you're saying Starboard is the way to go with this, but can this company be fixed? Okay, people looked at Marissa Meyer as the last option when she came in, as the last option for her. What do you think of the underlying properties? Is the sale investigation?
There are some growth elements, but there's some significant decline in the core, and their desktop deployment is really evaporating quickly. I think it would be still a lengthy process, and that's where I think the frustration is from the investment community is they keep investing a lot of money. They're forgoing quite a bit of economics by trying to grow their own monetization platforms. There can be a significant amount of free cash flow generated from that if they just play for harvest as opposed to reposition for growth.
What would you tell investors to do at this point? If you're eyeing the stock, that's a good place for entry, or is this just something that you tell people to steer clear until there's a real plan in place?
No, I think this is an opportunity to be involved because you can see a pathway to realization of the asset value, and that's significantly higher.
What is the underlying asset value?
Even on the EBITDA forecast for the core business with these investments, valuing that 4 times EBITDA, which is not a growth multiple way. I mean, we're looking at $43 stock. I think if managed for a private equity investor, there's a significant amount of free cash flow that would be left on the table, and you could create even more value from there.
Rob, thanks for joining us today. It's good talking to you.
Thanks, Mark.
When we return, the big decline in Valiant stock is having a catastrophic impact on the company's investors. Bill Ackman's Virgin Square is down 25% this year, and another high-profile hedge fund manager is stepping down. We have the details straight ahead. There's a lot of places you never want to see $7.95. But you'll be glad to see it here. Fidelity, where smarter investors will always be. Where to get in, where to get out. Only designs where it's obvious when you trade. Fidelity's Active Trader Pro can help you find smarter entry and exit points, and can help protect your potential profits. Fidelity, where smarter investors will always be.
The power of the NASDAQ market. The power of 100 of the world's top companies. The power of an ETF. The power of QQQ. The thinking we put in, clients get out. Power your client's portfolio with PowerShares.com. next-level speed, coverage, marketing, and control features. Plus, Wi-Fi Pro offers what AT&T's Wi-Fi small site doesn't. Professional installation, advanced security, and millions of hotspots nationwide. Looks like taking your business to the next level starts with ditching AT&T. Give your business an edge with Comcast Business Wi-Fi Pro. Comcast Business, built for business.
To many, this done is just the end of a sentence. Over, done, finito. But at GoDaddy, this dot, your domain name, is the beginning of something awesome. Use it to create a website. Open an online store. Build your brand. You can even connect a domain to your LinkedIn or Facebook page. And GoDaddy customer support is always ready to help. What will you do with your domain name? Get a free domain website from GoDaddy, starting at $1 a month.
Welcome back to Squawk here on CNBC. First in business worldwide. Sequoia's president has resigned. The $5.6 billion mutual fund has been hit hard by its big stake in Valiant. Robert Goldfarb was the longtime leader of the fund. Morningstar says Sequoia has underperformed 98% of its peers so far this year, but this is a hedge fund with a long and storied history. It was originally started with investors that Warren Buffett sent their way. He sent it to Bill Ruan, who was a friend of his who he'd studied with at Columbia University back in 1951 under Ben Graham. When Warren Buffett shut down his fund in 1969 because he didn't see a lot of possibilities of advancement in the market, got stocks completely overpriced, he sent investors towards Bill Ruan, who had started the Sequoia Fund. And Sequoia Fund has been under Goldfarb's management for some time. The fund over the last 45 years has still sharply outperformed the S&P 500, I think by about 300 basis points, even with all of these Valiant losses. But this year it was below 98%, and last year it was below something like 89% of favors. So this investment is a fund that never put its money in too many different stocks. It would take a stock, take a big position, and hold on to it. And with Valiant shares down by about 89%, that's crushed a lot of the players who are
A lot of smart money John Paulson as well. Amazing thing. Meantime, an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning saying that regulators plan to lock up Wall Street bonuses even longer than before. Its long-delayed proposal has been part of the Dodd-Frank financial regulation expected to be put in place in April. Now, many firms have already pulled back much of executive bonuses for up to 3 years. Regulators will extend that lockup. There's not an exact word on how long it would be held. Those things likely to be shorter than the European standard, which is actually a decade, 2 years. It's also unclear how much of those bonuses would be held back, but an early draft of the rules said it should be about 50%, so I suspect it will be 3 to 5 years, of course. Banks trying to push for less, and the regulators trying to push for.
Managers in the United States are preparing for a new rule that would change how they advise retirement savers. The Department of Labor is expected to publish its fiduciary standard in the next few weeks. That will require wealth managers to put the interests of retirement savers ahead of their own. So we mentioned this before. It seems odd that this is even something that has to come up. You would think they always have your fiduciary protection at mind. But this is being put in to try and protect retirees from buying unnecessary products that line brokers' pockets with fees and commissions. Opponents of the rule say it will lead to firms abandoning clients with smaller, less lucrative accounts. So if we don't get that off of it, we don't want to help you. It would also drive up the costs for others. This rule is expected to have a bigger impact on small wealth management firms that have fewer resources to pay for new training, technology, and extra paperwork. In anticipation, the rule wealth managers are cutting fees, reducing minimum account balances, and relying more on technology to buy.
Some of my broker friends were tweeting that they were disappointed in me and what I said about the brokers, and I said that was my broker, my ex-broker.
Your tax life.
I said next time I'll definitely go on a Department of Labor grant if you want, because it's totally over. I mean, you look at the way he made the appointments to the Labor Department. They recess appointments, he stacked the deck so that anything he wants.
It's probably the way the rule is written. You say that you have to put your
No one would disagree. No one would disagree with that. But that is very true. What we just said at the very end. It's always the good intentions. So it's going to anybody that doesn't have a big nest egg or the potential one is not going to be service anymore. So that's going to be the end result of someone trying to. So I hope that was enough on that side.
Before you discuss, just real quick, we're now officially out of that announcement that they are mounting that proxy contest. Search CE9 board members
if you're a lunatic, because if Tim Cook is patriotic at all at this point to not open that phone, after, right, so it's even.
Yeah, what I will say,
I can switch sides there too. Can you do my side?
that's a very wireful
You
thing.
can do my privacy side?
100%.
100%. We should do that next week.
You know the viewers think this is all theater anyway.
So,
So,
I don't know, is it?
I'm sure you want a lot of
You're not really a New York left-wing, lack of values Ted Cruz New Yorker, and I'm really not a I don't think. Just take a look at some stocks. So you're talking like that, bro. I'm just telling you.
Actually, I'm not the great guy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the ventriloquist. You're on my lap, pal. Anyway, exactly. You're sitting up like PVH reports better than expected fourth quarter results, but the maker of Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger apparel is giving downbeat guidance for 2016. The company cites increased promotions, restrained consumer spending, and currency headwinds. That's going to be that'll be up somewhere. Someone will use that. Right? They'll use that. Say that in there. KB Builders' first quarter profit rising 68%, beating forecasts. The home builder says a healthy backlog is contributing to a favorable outlook for the full year. The company also reported a 5% increase in average selling prices to more than $344,000. Raytheon raising its annual dividend by more than 9% to $2.93 a share. This is the 12th straight year the defense contractor has boosted its annual payout to shareholders. Becky, last thing I heard was, we got plenty of time here, we got plenty of time here, we got plenty. Now here, go. So it's a finely tuned
We do
machine.
realize
It's
that
a finely tuned,
when they tell us to talk, we have to do.
finely tuned machine in there. If we miss a half hour, we're all fired.
We have
All fired.
diarrhea in the mouth here, all of us. When we come back, ANC Network CEO Jeff Saban joins us for the hour to talk media, the economy, and much more. We'll get some economic data as well as jobless claims. It's all coming up along with durable goods. By the way, check out the futures. We are looking at the Dow futures down by 56, the S&P futures off by 10, and swap back to be right back.
What is train station's best feature? There's reason of that thing. Yeah. Think of differentiation. It should be ability to analyze pleasure that's not, real-time fashion or end-of-bar fashion all day long without you having to do it manually. I use it every day with thousands of people there, and that's just my training. Keeps the idea all day long. Trader's trade. A trade station.
Sir Ridley Scott, legendary filmmaker. Are you a film buff? No, but I'm studying the visual storytelling in your movies. It's amazing how much information is contained in a single image. One visual can make or break a film. I'm analyzing images for factory managers, salespeople, and healthcare professionals. That's good news, but not exactly movie material. Perhaps the healthcare professional could be played by Matt Damon. You learning kid. Introducing the best unlimited 4G LTE business plan in wireless. 3 lines of unlimited data for only $50 each. And when you get 3 lines, we'll give you the 4th line free. Only for a limited time with T-Mobile at work. Actions speak louder. Something will show you through small things, big things, and it's for the moment things. Share it.
The E-Class has 11 intelligent driver assist systems. It recognizes pedestrians and alerts you. Warns you of incoming cross-traffic. Cameras and radar detect dangers you don't. And it can even stop by itself. So when this crash does, one thing is missing. A crash. The 2016 E-Class. Now receive up to a $3,000 free bonus on the E350 Sport Sedan.
Oh, wait. Hey, fancy seeing you here.
Right over there, actually.
No, I wasn't. Oh, look, you dropped something.
It's your resume with a $20 bill taped to it.
That's weird.
You want to work for GE too?
What?
Well, we're always looking for developers who are for big, world-changing challenges like making planes, trains, and hospitals.
Well, it's like you watch and tell me what time I should be there.
I don't hire people. I'm a developer.
Gonna need my day off.
Oh, again, not my fault.
CNBCMakeup.com. How-to guides, testimonials, success secrets, a destination for dreamers, doers, and game changers. Stop thinking about
Details on their late-night Twitter fight.
Ford could be pulling the Ethan Hawke starring in a new film that tells the story of legendary jazz trumpeter Chet Baker.
This show could be lots of kids, right?
The Oscar-nominated actor is in the house as the final hour of Squawk Box begins right now.
Squawk here on CNBC, First in Business Worldwide. I'm Becky Piccolo, Joe Vernon, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. We're less than 90 minutes away from the opening bell on Wall Street. Futures have been weaker all morning long. Right now, the Dow sitting close to 60 points below fair value. S&P futures down by 10, and Nasdaq buying down by 21. By the way, this is the last trading day of the week, and we are on track to break a 6-week winning streak for stocks. Energy prices are down as well, down 2.25% this morning. WTI sitting right at 38.92. And take a look at the markets in Europe. They've seen some weakness across the board today, too. It looks like the biggest decliner of the major averages right now is the CAC in France. It's down by 1.8%. The DAX is off by about 1 1/3%. FTSE also down by 1 1/3.
Let's get some stories that are at our attention this morning. St. Louis Fed President Jim Bullard is set to speak in New York at 8:15 Eastern Time. This is important because in comments yesterday, he joined other central bank voices suggesting the Fed could raise rates as early as next month. A bit of a reversal from his view earlier when he's been just with us a couple weeks ago here on Spot Box. In corporate news this morning, Starboard launching officially a proxy by now to remove Yahoo's entire board. It's nominated a slate of 9 directors, including Starboard's Jeffrey Smith. After this firm has been infiltrated the tech company's management most recently, asking Yahoo to separate its Asian assets and sell its core business. Starboard owns less than 1% of the company. Interestingly, we talked earlier with an analyst. We asked this question of A, what happens to Russell Meyer, and 2, is this really just a pressure tactic to sell the company? I would argue now, having read the letter, it is. They say they'd be very happy to reach a resolution. It's a tactic to put some pressure on these folks to actually get a deal done. There has been a view that the board is trying to speak. There's somehow they describe this auction theater, which is to say that there's a pretend auction going on, so maybe we want a real auction. Several things we should take this morning. Young Brands is reportedly in talks with private equity firm KKR and Roku Investments to sell a minority stake in its China operations. Young is preparing to spin off the unit. Reuters reporting a possible stake sale values the China business at about $10 billion.
And some stocks to watch this morning, following some quarterly earnings reports. Accenture reported quarterly profit of $1.34 a share. 16 cents above estimates, also raised its full-year forecast on strong growth for its consulting services. Winnebago, a name near and dear to a couple of producers on the show, reported a profit of 35 cents a share, 2 cents above estimates, but revenue fell short of forecast. Winnebago did say it sees sales improving on the success of new products and a robust backlog. Athletic apparel retail Finish Line came in 3 cents above estimates, with profits of 83 cents a share. The company said it benefited from better supply management, among other factors. The above ground, yes. Because if you move your house and your pool, put it on wheel. They don't hit. That's it. All right. Easy way. I got it.
There's a new developments this morning in a very serious that's the problem. It's hard to transfer from that, but there's new developments that are developing this morning where terrorists killed 31, injured more than 200 just days ago. French and Belgian media reporting now that a second attacker is suspected taking part in the bombing of a Brussels subway train and may still be at large. Authorities have not commented on this report as of yet. And the chief suspect in the Paris attacks is facing a hearing in Brussels today after his arrest last week. Belgian authorities charged him with terror offenses. French authorities are seeking his extradition. Meantime, let's get to our chief international correspondent right now, Michelle Boucher, who joins us from Brussels. Good morning to you, Michelle.
Good morning, Andrew. Europeans are waking up this morning to the news that there are definitive connections, according to police, between the Brussels attack 2 days ago and Paris attacks of November. We showed the local newspaper on the front here. It says Paris and Brussels, and then équipe, that means the same team. Here's why they believe that the 2 brothers who died as suicide bombers, one at the airport and one at the train station, they are believed to have been accomplices in the Paris attack, providing safe houses, transportation information. The bomb maker of the Paris bombs is believed to have died at the airport here in Brussels on Tuesday. So definitive connections, cross-border situation when it comes to terrorist attacks, but now criticism that there isn't enough cross-border cooperation among the intelligence agencies in Europe to help head off attacks like we saw here. In the meantime, it is not life back to normal here in Brussels. There is pervasive military police presence throughout. We see metal detectors to get into various areas where normally they don't exist. At the train station, there used to be 4 entrances. Now there's only 1. They are frisking people as they go in and out. It has left everyone on edge.
I'm running late because we're going through so many sections I explained to Führer. And so, yeah, we're to be stopped on all the metro stations and just listen, yeah, Philip, which neighbors.
You can hear the stress and the tension in your voice, and there's a lot of people here in Brussels who feel that way. Again, in the newspapers, I'll show you one more newspapers. These are always the tough ones, right? This newspaper has written the first names of the 31 people who died in the attacks on Tuesday. You see a number of newspapers focusing on the victims, and that's what's going on here. People mourn the victims of this attack. This is a nation memorial that has sprung up here in the center of Brussels, guys.
So thank you. So we'll check back in with you just a little later today, too. Right now, let's get back to the markets. Our next guest says that the rest of the current economic recovery here in the United States will be characterized by neither a bull nor a bear, but by a money market. Joining us right now to talk about that is Jim Paulson. He is Chief Investment Strategist at Wells Capital Management. And Jim, I think it's probably appropriate to start talking about bunnies just a few days before Easter, but what is a bunny market?
Well, I think we're conditioned in this business, especially to think either in terms of the roaring bull or the raging bear. And indeed, that's the conversation today, whether this is the recent rallies of resumption of the bull or whether it's a bear market trap. The reality is a lot of post-war history has been characterized not by a bull or bear, but really by a bunny market, which hops around a lot but doesn't go anywhere. And indeed, money markets are most prevalent historically in the latter years of an economic recovery, which is kind of what we have entered into. And a little bit of what we've experienced here in the last 12 to 18 months might be precursor to what we might see for the balance of this recovery. And I think that investors should might think differently about this, not really think, is this a bull again or is it a bear, but maybe get prepared for a multi-year period of bunny market. You know, I think what happens early in the recovery, the stock market runs aggressively on undervaluation, on a resurgent earnings cycle, on the lack of any interest rate pressures, accommodative Fed, and then it kind of uses up all that, and it's hard to continue to sustain the bull run, which is kind of where we're at today. We have an aged earnings cycle, we have high valuations, Fed's going to start pulling away. But on the other hand, I don't see where we're going to have recession anytime soon. And if you don't have recession, you probably are not going to have sustainable bear market. So we're caught in between.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a recipe for buying in as an investor, or just what do you think?
I think that's the key thing here. I think there's different things to do as an investor, rather than to be thinking about being risk on or risk off. I would throw out a few things. One thing is that maybe a little market timing would be beneficial for you. If the markets are going to go up 10 or 20% a year, there's no need. But if they're going to wobble around, you can try to benefit from the money hops, if you will, adding a little bit of exposure when it hops down.
And hops down 1%, or do you have to wait for 10%?
Well, I think you could pick a range. I got a range this year of 1,800 to 2,200 with a flat market, for example, and would be adding in the lower part of that and looking more defensively above. But that's one thing at the margin. I think this really brings money markets bring the value out of active management of stock tickers and sector rotators in a bigger way. If the public markets are going straight up, then you can just buy index funds and do well. But in money markets, the value of good stock pickers shine relative to a market that doesn't go very far, as well as sector allocations. I think you could consider putting more overseas too, Becky, where those recoveries are at a younger stage than we are here in the United States.
firms right now who said, look, anybody who's telling you buying in Europe right now is still pretty pessimistic, just based on the economy, based on all the things they have coming up, and what's happened with these attacks.
Well, I like the international markets. I like emerging markets probably better than I do the developed markets. But I also think international developed markets might outperform the U.S. Over the next few years as well. I just think they're the other states. They got companies that still have more upside earnings possibilities. They're better relative value. They're widely underowned. So I think they offer something, contribution to the money market. Two of the things I throw out, oftentimes in money markets in the latter parts of recoveries, real assets do better than financial assets. We're starting to have some, I think real estate, commodities, I think do a little better. We've had disinflation, deflation in this bull market so far. We're now kind of turning the corner. Core costs are starting to accelerate. I think we might have more real assets doing better in the latter half, which, by the way, happens in mass money markets as well. And then lastly, you might try to consider some hedge strategies. Hedge strategies don't do much good if the public markets are going straight north. But in markets that are sideways drifting, I think that value added to the hedge with risk management, I think, might do a lot better. So I just think it's a mindset change from thinking about a bull or a bear to preparing for a money, particularly the coming weekend.
Interesting there, and Jim, I thank you for being with us. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Greg.
And coming up, everybody remembers that channel that used to have like old movie, black and white movie, would never make anything of itself, right? They're old, and then suddenly things like Walking Dead or Mad Men or Breaking Bad, just on and on and on, and a lot of that had to do with our next guest, AMC. See, I won't say those first two words because it's a horrific website run by part of the hack. Anyways, I won't say media members. AMC CEO Josh Signan is our guest host. He joins us next. And then later, Spouse SPAC. It's cruel to do that. In the battle between GOP presidential candidates Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, turning from politics to family. We have to talk about that. The details of the late night clarified business.
We run forecasts in each country and for a range of time scenarios.
And how do you have the resources to do that?
We don't. That's why we grind BDO. People who know BDO.
The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track benchmarks. But investing is about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation: it's time to bench the benchmarks.
Like software that helps unleash the potential in everything. More than 50,000 organizations use our products to organize, discuss, and share work.
Know you have a dedicated advisor and team who understand where you come from. Know you can craft an investment plan as strong as your values. Know that together you can establish a meaningful legacy. With the guidance and support of your dedicated PNC wealth management team.
Today, all eyes on Apple. Hot new products on pre-order. The impact on consumers and investors now. Squawk Alley, 11 a.m. Eastern, CNBC. The goals seem insurmountable. To find a way to unleash the immune system's power to fight cancer. We achieved it at Dana-Farber. When one didn't exist, Dana-Farber created a pathway to treat children with rare brain cancers. And by identifying and attacking genetic flaws in some cancers, we're already creating more effective therapies. Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Discover, care, believe.
disputing a story from Variety that its web traffic plummeted last month. Earlier this week, Variety reported that February traffic on Vice sites dropped by 17% from January. Vice says that the Variety story only looks at a small portion of its business that's focused on selling digital ads across partner sites, and the report misconstrues the dip in partner traffic as a dip in Vice's traffic. In a statement to CNBC, Vice says, according to Comscore, traffic to Vice's websites grew between January and February. Any suggestion otherwise is entirely inaccurate and false.
We took some meetings. Our guest host for the rest of the hour is AMC Network's President and CEO, Josh Saban. And I think some people pronounce your name in many ways, right? We said, okay, I just want to make sure. Fast Company naming him one of the 100 most creative people in business. Kind of nice. Media sector had a rough start, though, we should say 2016 AMC not meeting year-to-date the stock, though, down 14%. Let's start our conversation this morning with the state of the content business and the changing media landscape. And let me put this to you, one of my favorite shows, which Better Call Saul, you made a very interesting decision to sell parts of that to Netflix early. So Breaking Bad succeeded, or some people say succeeded in part because you gave it to Netflix and people sort of caught up. But you've done this now almost immediately, so I can actually watch. If I missed it on AMC, catch up with it on Netflix. Has that changed the whole landscape?
Yeah. So, the relationship between a linear channel like ours or several linear channels and streaming services, Netflix or Hulu, is interesting. We found that they actually support, for the most part, linear viewing. You can catch up. Right. Generally, a year later, right, is what our standard policy is, and then we all caught up and ready for the new season.
Or rewatch, right?
Or rewatch, exactly right. So it's not a simple thing. It's not one thing or the other. And arguably, there's some degree of competition. We have found it to be mostly sympathetic.
At the moment, are you worried, though, that people are going to start deciding I'm just going to watch everything then on a different over-the-top service?
Valid to be worried about. I think the task becomes making content that's urgent enough, interesting enough, timely enough that you don't want to wait a year to cycle in favor. So that's a fun challenge. It means you have to really want to be in, be immersed, have a great time, and that's what a lot of it.
So what's changing in terms of used to be on Monday mornings, people would go and they'd sit around the office corner and they'd say, do you see such and such on Sunday night? And by the way, why is every show on Sunday night? Which doesn't make any sense.
Because everybody's there on Sunday night.
Everybody's there on Sunday night. But now I hear more and more from people who say, no, I actually don't watch it on Sunday, I watch it on Tuesday night because I'm just shifting home.
Well, that's true, but there's probably 15 million humans who watch The Walking Dead.
Yes.
On Saturday night because they want to be in a conversation on Monday morning. So there's some of that you have finance, that's the technology, and there's also if you're urgent and if you're immersive, right, then you're in the conversation.
And what do you do though about binging? So many people for certain series now say, you know what, I'm gonna these are series that come out every Sunday night. They say, you know what, I'm gonna wait all 12 weeks or whatever it is, and I'm gonna wait to the end and then I'm gonna binge the whole thing.
Yeah. That's an interesting issue in business because of course we sell advertising, so that is meaningful. And as I mentioned, it's not one thing or the other. It supports linear viewership and it also can drain away some opportunities. So you have to be hopefully wise about how you use it and balance it.
How do you juggle that? I find myself in the same position. I like to watch 2 or 3 episodes at a time of movie shows because I get more bang for my buck. I rarely have an hour to sit down, particularly when the kids aren't awake. I want to watch something like Walking Dead. How do you get the most out of me?
Yeah, well, it'd be tough because you guys are a little busy. And okay, we're probably a little sleep deprived as well. So you're probably the toughest guys to invite and command to do what we might looks like you do. Really give them a little bit more time on their hands and they have to be part of the conversation. So the task is ours to make it a bit of an event, right, and to make the conversation something that you want to be part of. And a lot plays into that, not just the content, but social media plays into it, surprise plays into it.
AMC has effectively created premium television with advertising.
Yeah.
From a storytelling perspective, how different is that from trying to create a story without advertising on an HBO or a Showtime or something like this?
Yeah.
So how do you think about that?
It's actually a great question. And
obviously our portfolio sort of has that issue. I think that it is a bit of a challenge because you can answer reflexively and say, oh, gee, I don't want to watch commercials. And you have to overcome that and make it meaningful with cliffhangers and with urgency.
And it's so hard to do when events are not going to be commercials that often. How do you do that when you're ending it with a cliffhanger, but if it's not going to be a commercial, when it plays later, it goes right into the next thing. You got to think about that. I mean, it can be too ridiculous. It happens right away.
Exactly right. So there's a little bit of rhythm that one can actually take advantage of. And, the people who are really good at it know how to write. They really know how to write for a break and take maximum advantage of the break. It actually is one of the tools.
It might not be a break.
We're going to take a pause. We're going to be here first. There are also a lot to talk about. We're talking about some of the mergers that may or may not happen in the space on that maybe.
I want to talk about whether Josh is like a creative genius or whether you're a cable visionary.
Science.
Well, right.
I'm just in the next room.
You can figure some out, right? We can all go. Coming up, more words, photos, and tweets between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. This must report on the story. We will do as it tops today's political talk next.
The ABC program is sponsored by Payment Legal, offering global investment solutions.
Ireland has developed a network of dynamic, industry-specific hotspots. Not the one today, and what will you find? You'll find a country ranked as one of the best in the world to do business. You'll find a country where 40% of the population are under 30 years of age. You'll find like-minded people in connected industries, and the right infrastructure and supported land. Explore Ireland's network of investment hotspots. Prepare for landing at IBAIreland.com.
Come on, Steve. It's not that hard of a game.
It's so apparently easy on Steve. That was a punch ball. Trade in yours for someone that won't practice more. And go up Smith.
Heaven knows that I would live a life of thee. I travel everywhere, live just like a bee. If I grew one tree.
At MFS Investment Management, we believe in the power of active management. We actively manage with expertise and conviction, so you can invest with more certainty. MFS, that's the power of active management.
We're watching CNBC with Business Worldwide.
April 18th and 19th in Miami. Discover, connect, be inspired. Emerge Americas, together with CNBC, presents a special 2-day summit. The B2B Tech Event of the Americas. Engage leading entrepreneurs with groundbreaking ideas. Connect to investors with a wealth of experience. Be inspired by top business and thought leaders. Transform yourself with new ways of thinking. Emerge Americas, April 18th and 19th in Miami. For tickets, go to emergeamericas.org.
Welcome back, everybody. On the campaign trail, the personal attacks between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz have reached a new level, with their wives now getting dragged into the rivalry. This anti-Trump ad featuring Trump's wife from a British GQ photo show was created by a Stop Trump group it ran in Utah. It was meant to turn off some of the Mormon voters. It says, meet Melania Trump, your next first lady, or you could support Ted Cruz on Tuesday. Cruz denounced the ad as inappropriate and said his campaign had nothing to do with it, but again, it was from a Cruz-inspired super PAC. That didn't stop Trump from threatening Cruz on Twitter that he would spill the beans about Cruz's wife Heidi. It's not clear what Trump's been talking about with this, but Cruz has since said candidates shouldn't attack each other's spouses or children. When we come back, breaking economic data, weekly jobless claims, and durable goods. Stay tuned. Squawk Box will be right back.
TD Ameritrade, they work hard. Wow, that was random.
Random? No. It's all about understanding patterns, like the mail guy at 3:12 every day, or Jared getting dumped every third Tuesday. We have pattern recognition technology on any chart, plus over 300 customizable studies to help you anticipate potential price movement. There's no way to predict that.
TD Ameritrade. The power of a low volatility investing approach. The power of smart beta. Power your client's portfolio. Power shares. Before investing, consider funds investment objectives, risk, charges, and expenses. Selling 193.093 prospectus contains information reading carefully. Distributed by Investment Distributors Inc.
Let's see, like software that helps unleash the potential in every team. More than 50,000 organizations use our products to organize, discuss, and complete share flow.
In New York State, we believe tomorrow starts today. All across the state, the economy is growing with creative new business incentives and the lowest taxes in decades, attracting the talent and companies of tomorrow. Like in Buffalo, where the largest solar gigafactory in the Western Hemisphere will soon energize the world, and in Syracuse, where imagination is in production. Let us help grow your companies tomorrow, today, at business.ny.gov.
Shark Tank Nation is back to back. These partners have a picture perfect path to success. But first, they need to see what the peppers in the tank.
This is not worth $3 million.
Shark Tank back to back tonight at 8 Eastern, CNBC. Hey, how's it going? I'm King. This place has hot pigs. So why aren't they selling hot pigs? With Comcast Business Internet and Wi-Fi Pro, they could be. Just add a customized message to your Wi-Fi Pro splash page, and you'll reach your customers where their eyes are already on their devices. Order up. It's more than just Wi-Fi. You can help grow your business. You don't see that every day. Introducing Wi-Fi Pro. Wi-Fi that helps grow your business. Comcast Business. Built for business.
Celebrity cruises, modern luxury, then scale. Vacationing in Europe has never been easier. Introducing the new Euro X Pass, ground trip air and much more.
Welcome back to Squawk Box 113, 8:30 now on the East Coast. A couple of big headlines. Silverwood just launching officially now a proxy fight to remove Yahoo's entire board is nominated a slate now of 9 directors, including the firm's own Jeffrey Smith, and who is seeking to replace the company's CEO, Orson on that board. Unclear whether he would stay as the CEO. Also, some other headlines this morning. James Bullard suggesting that he's got some issues, maybe switching around, by the way, for the first time. He's speaking in New York right now. He's suggesting that the next hike may not be far off. When I said that's a switch, that's a big switch for news this year. Saying the opposite a couple weeks ago. Also, reports out of Europe saying a second attacker may have taken part in the bombs and the bombing at the Brussels subway station this weekend. May still be large authorities there not commenting on those reports. In the meantime, we now have some weekly jobless claims scheduled for durable goods. And Rick Santelli is standing by the CME Chicago Red.
Well, thank you, Andrew. 265,000 on initial claims. That's from a slight, well, actually, pretty decent sized revision. 265 last week was the original release, just like today. Downgraded to 259, so we're up 6,000 from that revised number. Just a bit shy of 2.18 million on continuing. Down 2.8 on February. Preliminary read on durable goods. Darn close to expectation, but it isn't about expectations entirely. Sequentially, not looking so good. 4.2 last time, revised a little bit lower from 4.7 to compare to minus 2.8. Take out transportation, it's down 1%. The all-important proxy for business spending, capital goods orders, non-defense ex-aircraft was down 1%. That's more than expected. And if we switch from the orders to the shipments, actually, I take that back. Ex-transportation was down 1. Capital goods orders, non-defense ex-aircraft was down 1.8%. expected. Of course, we have a long weekend. We have early closes in the futures and cash for the interest rate and foreign exchange complex. And that's going to be interesting as equities fend for itself for several hours after those. The reason? You never know. Volatility's been low, a lot of short vol. We're going to be very anxiously watching those last couple hours. Becky, back to you. Have a great Easter.
Rick, you too. Happy Easter. Right now, Steve Wiesman joins us with reaction to today's data points. And Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, real quick, the jobs numbers continue to be good, point to 250, 200,000. We'll get to Michelle Meyer in a second on her estimate after the claims numbers at the bottom. The manufacturing sector of the economy continues to be challenged. We had a good month last month. It fell back this month, and it's a very volatile series, but I don't think I'm seeing any surge in business spending or investment. It's still a challenged part of the economy, but I want to get to something else we've been working on. The government tomorrow is going to report the third revision to fourth quarter GDP. We did an in-depth analysis of the government's reports on gross domestic product, and they show large and persistent errors that should give everyone, from investors to business executives to policymakers, pause in relying on this early data for key decisions. We went back to 1990. We found an average error rate of 1.3 percentage points, plus or minus, in those initial pre-GDP reports compared to where we'll eventually, thank you very much, Becky, that is absolutely correct. And that's compared to where we'll eventually revise to years later with more complete data. So an initial report, let's say it's 2%, on average will later be revised to 3.3 or 0.7. The research doesn't show any systematic overstatement or understatement of growth. We also found about 30% of the time the government gets direction of growth wrong. That is, GDP initially shown to be higher than the previous quarter could in fact be revised to be lower and vice versa. The error rate haven't improved over the decades despite vast improvements in computing power and communication speed. The size revisions are owing to 2013, the same as those from 1990 to 1995. The error rate in the second and third estimates of GDP, they're the same as the first. So you have more time, more data, but the revisions are just going to be as large 3 months after the end of the quarter as they are 1 month after. Now, Brent Moulton is the Associate Director for National Economic Accounts at the Bureau of Economic Analysis. The BEA puts the report together. He told CNBC, quote, "We're working to try to get more accurate data in time to improve the advanced GDP estimate. Revisions are not errors. They represent improvements to the GDP estimate as more information becomes available." We contacted a bunch of economists and asked them to guess the error rate. They did not, in general, know it. They were off by a half to 2/3. But they did add, it is a bigger, more complex, and more esoteric economy that is hard to measure. We found the biggest error rates, Becky, in business spending, intellectual property. Consumption is about an average error rate. And one sort of ironic aspect to all this is there are pretty decent error rates in the government portion of GDP accounts. So the government doesn't count the government all that good.
All right. Two issues on this. One is, this is ridiculous. Why do we look at these numbers? And the second is, why this huge delay getting the data? You said the government's part of the problem?
Right. So they have to wait a year to get like complete wage data, or another year to get like data from the IRS. They have to go through the tax forms. People are late in filing their tax forms. People amend their tax forms. Every 5 years, there's an economic census. There's a broader economic census. It seems like there should be ways, including incorporating private sector data, including maybe it's a funding issue for the BEA. Some economists suggested that. They don't really incorporate a lot of in this world of increasing metadata. And you can ask Andrew.
500 files so much of this information that just took that data.
You would think we could use some of that, and there should at least be some experiments. So there's a lot of people who come forward, a lot of economists who don't want to say GDP is not really measuring is not a good measure of wealth, satisfaction, and happiness of the economy. Anyway, there are other measures out there, but the main message here is those first 3 reports, advanced first and second advanced second and third estimates. Take those with huge caution. We showed time when, for example, the Fed was meeting at the beginning of 2008, and GDP was reported plus 0.6%, and they cut back a quarter to 2%. But that number would later be revised to minus 2.7%. So maybe they would have cut more. We saw an example, for example, I think it was the second quarter of '92, George Bush running for re-election at that time. Growth reported 1.4%. Pedestrian growth, a lot of complaints about the economy. Bill Clinton goes on to be elected. In later years, that number is revised up to north of 4%.
Michelle Meyer. She is the deputy head of U.S. Economics at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And Michelle, I mean, I'm a little shocked by hearing this. What do you think?
It's a big number. 1.3 percentage points is large, especially more recently when the economy's only been growing about 2% or so. So you're talking about a big chunk of that overall GDP number. I think the point that Steve made that it doesn't improve between the second and the third is really important because where a lot of the revision comes from are these benchmark revisions that happen annually. And sometimes there are methodology changes, sometimes there's just more sample, more data that's included, but it could fundamentally change the picture. So what we thought we were looking at in the economy with GDP a year later, 2 years later, it could look very different.
And let me add that we did find you could reduce your error rate of knowing where the economy is by averaging the prior 4 quarters. It's still a 0.6, but it's half of what it was.
But again, a lot of important decisions and market moves are based on those numbers that are now instantaneous.
The other thing we found is that Fed officials tell me privately, you said that, and said it publicly as well, that when they have a contradiction between jobs and GDP, they go with jobs. That the jobs number, even though that's plus or minus 100,000.
That to me is just as odd.
I mean, you don't have the revisions to jobs.
Right.
I mean, you have annual revisions to jobs, but it's nowhere near the level.
And you have much more of the information that can happen.
The other thing, though, is it's kind of like a nod to Joe in the argument we had over 13 years. Does the market show have a better read on where it's going? This is really a thing. Well, maybe the market is a better gauge when we've seen it be wrong half the time. I don't know, but not significant. Obviously, you should just keep it whatever I know. Right. I should bump on it more.
And I'll show you you don't let things stand in the way, first of all. So you won't get credit for it.
In fact, I don't let my respect for you stand in the way of all the things he said to me for the last 13 years.
Michelle, let me ask you one quick question. We had a market guy who was with us earlier today and said that he's concerned about capital expenditures falling so far below, and that will eventually catch up to stocks. That you're going to have to pay the piper at some point if you are not reinvesting in your business. Do you worry about that too?
I do, and I think the data we got this morning is incredibly helpful in that respect. So durable goods orders, even if you look at the guts that are core capital goods orders and shipments were down more than expected. So it's going to take down tracking estimates for the first quarter of GDP. I think generally speaking, what we've seen is probably a turn in the profit cycle. You're starting to see, you're seeing low productivity, you're starting to see some wage growth, and you haven't seen businesses be really forceful about CapEx throughout this recovery. And now that conditions are changing and they're becoming less favorable for corporations, I think you're going to have even less expenditure. So that is problematic, I think, for the economy.
Michelle, thank you. Steve, thank you.
Thanks. Online, CFC.com, got a full takeout on all of our issues. This is easy to keep.
Thank you.
Coming up, thanks. Actor filmmaker Ethan Hawke is in the house. He's going to tell us why he's born to be Jet Icon, Chet Baker. But I'm going to go a little slower just to let this go. Autumn leaves. We'll be back.
The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track the benchmarks. But investing isn't about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation. It's time to bench the benchmarks.
The latest command forward sales event is on, with extraordinary offers on the visionary LS, the generously appointed ES, and the new 8-passenger LS. This is the pursuit of perfection. Each day, our planet awakens with signs of opportunity. But with opportunity comes risk, and to manage this risk, the world turns to CME Group. We help farmers lock in future prices. Banks manage interest rate changes, and airlines hedge fuel costs, all so they can manage their risks and move forward. It's simply a matter of following the signs. They all lead here. CME Group, how the world advances. Actions speak louder. Something will show you through small things, big things, and it's proof of little things. Share it.
or as obvious when you trade. Fidelity's Active Trader Pro can help you find smarter entry and exit points and can help protect your potential profits. Fidelity, where smarter investors will always be.
So I told the guy if the boards are gonna help him score more goals, load him up.
Amen, brother.
Meet Christine Brennan. When it comes to the game, she needs business. USA Today Sports.
Thanks, Christine.
Hear about the senator? He had to resign, got caught sexting.
It was health reasons.
What was it?
Well, let's ask Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page.
He had to resign for health reasons.
Meet Susan Page and get the facts, not the fiction. USA Today.
Forex guests is starting big blockbusters like the Dead Poet Society Training Day, and last year's big Oscar winner, Boyhood, and his latest film, Born to Be Blue. What that says. Ethan Hawke portrays legendary jazz trumpeter Chet Baker. AMC's film division IFC will release the movie tomorrow, and it's now Oscar-nominated actor, filmmaker, writer, director, Ethan Hawke. And good to have you here.
Nice to meet you.
First thing I was going to ask you, Chet Baker fans are not, I don't necessarily think there's a lot of them necessarily, and we're unique in being fans together. I was not a fan until his comeback in 1974. I was like 18 years old. It came out of Bob James, that album Human Laws, Jack Nicholson. But you go all the way back to Charlie Parker, Jerry Mulligan. I mean, were you a fan of his music?
My relationship with it started even later. My relationship with it really didn't start until right before he died. He died right after I graduated high school. And there was this documentary that just, let's get lost, right? Came out. And I didn't know anything about jazz at all. And I saw that movie and found the whole world and mystique around him just really enigmatic and strange and seductive. And I started buying records. And so Chad and Nina Simone and Billie Holiday were kind of my entry point to jazz. And then that brought me into the bebop scene. And then I started kind of walking through it and trying to understand it.
It makes me think, I read some of the stuff that you talk about. Heroin runs through all this. Billie Holiday, it runs. It's amazing.
Yeah, to understand that.
Charlie Parker, I think.
Even Charlie, especially Charlie Parker. Yeah, Charlie
But all the other current day, some of your close to your friends and tables and.
It's prevalent with it. I mean, it's a little tragic, but it's how people manage their depression and their feelings in life of inadequacy, disappointment, or fear, anxiety, whatever. How people manage that is a better way to look at it in a strange way, because usually drug and alcohol addiction are the symptom of the cause. People like to just blame that, but it's a problem that starts before that starts.
So you almost played it. I looked at some of your movies, and I'll tell you a story after we got the air about my son. Like, he's obsessed with Boyhood, and also with Before Sunrise, and not before the midnight or sunset. And the way that the Linkletter, if you could have done that original Charlie Parker, at the young Ethan Hawke, and then when you could have done,
We should see what you're referring to. That 15 years ago, Richard Linklater and I workshopped an idea of a movie about Chet Baker. We had a script. We were trying to raise money for it. This is like when I was 28, 29 years old, and I didn't get to make the movie. I was super disappointed about it. And then 15 years later, this ship sails right, and here's a new script about Chet in his 40s that's actually visiting him at a kind of more vulnerable and interesting moment. And so I felt like I was making a sequel to a film I never got to make in the first place.
it has more action scenes in that first one in Sausalito.
Well, I did have more fun.
Right. The cheese, and then you got
Things where it's that whole lighthouse West Coast.
got to get somebody else to play it. If we're going to kill you,
I'd like to. My hope is that this movie will do really well, and then Linklater and I I'll produce it for him, and we can find a happening young guy that is happening
the check file. Business question. How do you, when you think about taking on a film role, think about a big budget film versus a small budget film, a indie film, how do you make that calculus?
For me, it's just about balance. If all you do is express yourself, then you won't mission.
Do you think you can make meaningful substance of art and make a lot of money doing it? Or do you think
You can't do that as your goal. Bob Dylan has made tremendous meaningful substantive art, and so has Martin Scorsese, and they made a ton of money. Emily Dickinson made meaningful substantive art, and she didn't make a penny. So you can't, as a member of the artistic community, you can't make that your goal. It's kind of like there's a great documentary about a baseball coach that Richard Linklater made, and it's a beautiful film. And it's about this baseball. This will relate, I promise. He's a coach. He's won 5 national championships with 5 different schools. That's harder than winning the World Series. And it's amazing. They asked him, the Yankees have approached him, Edwards approached him, why don't you coach professional ball? He says, because the point of professional baseball is to win. He says, and what I try to do is teach young men to how to grow up. And if you play the right way, change the direction that you will win.
So what do you do? Is it 1-for-1? You do these with one and they get to do one?
No, I try to never do that. I mean, you just have to keep a part of your brain available to the idea of making things that people want to see versus making things that you really want to do. And when you find the intersection of those two things, that's how I make my calculus.
Think about this guy who makes movies, he also does TV. Now, so many actors want to be on TV movies. Right. I think they want to be how do you feel about that?
I think the world is always changing, and I think that some of the best writers and directors and every talent is working on television. It's undeniable.
Did you say?
In the movie? Yeah. And he just wants to know about Chet.
Wait a second.
And you also learn, and I also talk about models.
Yeah.
Miles and Franchise. And I think it's really interesting that you point out that in your book, that Chuck, when you talk about models all the time, they don't even mention that.
That's because Miles, one of the cool changed everything. Right. From jazz fans, Yeah. Miles Davis, Charlie Parker. The thing is, to get back to Charlie,
Miles had about 4 revolutions.
he is Amadeus Wolfgang Mozart to jazz, right? And Chet Baker is an excellent, gifted, fascinating trumpet player. Miles Davis is a revolution.
And I get back anything in Miles' life in terms of drama, because Chet had an unbelievably, like a life you want to put in a movie. But Miles,
What I want to tell you about, which I think you find interesting, is that, without Chet got his break, was auditioning for Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker was doing this West Coast tour. He was doing a West Coast tour, and he didn't have a trumpet player. And Chet Baker was the first person that Charlie Parker had ever met, and the only person he had ever met who could play his solos back for him. And it's because neither one of them could read music. They both had a complete innate sense of music. And so the word is that Charlie Parker called up Miles and said, oh, this is a white cat out of the West Coast. And then Charlie Parker called Miles and said, and that was Chet's, pride and hope that this probably never happened. But yes, I'm one of you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
That was going to be like an hour special.
Let's find out which documentary, which I have not seen.
Oh, let's go. You got to see it. Yeah. It's beautiful. The first thing you got to do is see my movie. What are you talking about?
And then we'll do the prequel. Maybe I'll help you.
Great.
Thank you. Doing business.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
We also did another documentary for us that we had called Seamart Introduction, which is actually
So, it's a music club where you like it.
The NBC program is sponsored by Payment Legal, offering global investment solutions. The power of innovative thinking. The power of 100 of the world's top companies. The power of an ETF. The power of QQQ. The thinking we put in, clients get out. Power your client's portfolio at powershares.com/QQQ. The forecasting incentive investment objectives, risk charges, and expenses, selling 193.93 perspectives contains information read carefully, distributed by investment distributors Inc.
The Lexus Command Performance sales event is on, with extraordinary offers on the visionary LS, the generously appointed ES, and the new 8-passenger LX. This is the pursuit of perfection. Actions speak louder. Something will will show you through small things, big things, and spur of the moment things. Share it.
You know that moment when you realize you need to do something with your old 401k. You change jobs, certainly didn't take a sabbatical. You didn't even go on vacation. So why should you retire in savings? Welcome to the new stop train. Whether you know where you're going or need guidance to get there, we're here to help. Now, it's your moment.
CNBCMaker.com. How-to guides, testimonials, success secrets. A destination for dreamers, doers, and game changers. Stop thinking about what could be and get real. CNBCMaker.com. Introducing Comcast Business Wi-Fi Pro with next-level speed, coverage, marketing, and control features. Plus, Wi-Fi Pro offers what AT&T's Wi-Fi small site doesn't. Professional installation, advanced security, and millions of hotspots nationwide. Looks like taking your business to the next level starts with ditching AT&T. Give your business an edge with Comcast Business Wi-Fi Pro. Comcast Business, built for business.
To many, this done is just the end of a sentence. Over, done, finito. But at GoDaddy, this dot, your domain name, is the beginning of something awesome. Use it to create a website. Open an online store. Build your brand. You can even connect a new name to your LinkedIn or Facebook page. And GoDaddy customer support is always ready to help. What will you do with your domain name? Get a free domain website from GoDaddy, starting at $1 a month.
Let's get down to your stock machine. President Kramer joins us now. Mr. Kramer, were you back Starwood's effort to get rid of the entire board of Yahoo with no premium?
Well, it would be stealing the company up, but I do think that Yahoo, when it came out in the first week of February, it was about to expire, and it sounded like something was going to happen, and this chairman, something was going to happen, and we keep hearing that they're not engaged. What this could do is force some engagement, bring out some value. So I think I support the notion that they should be doing something. Maybe this wakes up Yahoo, which seemed to have, went into sleep mode. I think some of your devices go into sleep mode. They went into sleep mode after they first came out. And I think that this could hasten maybe a bid from Verizon, which I know one of these assets very badly.
How does this work? Could she get kicked off the board and then stay as the CEO?
That seems illogical. It doesn't seem like that would be the case. Look, I think that these guys could turn this thing around very, very quickly. And I think that people don't understand there's a lot, I've been saying over and over again, there's a lot of hidden value in Yahoo that seems to be staying in with this current management. Take all that. Wow, billions. There's billions here.
Billions, correct. Billions all around. Coming up on ABC Networks, the CEO, Josh St. Ann. There, okay. He's going to tell us about the most upcoming slate of shows. Here's your content. Still can't go back. Welcome back.
E-Trade is all about seizing opportunity. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go off script.
So if I want to go to Jersey and check out Shotzi Tucciarelli's portfolio, what's it to you?
Foreign space, whose assets are made of stone like the heart.
Papa,
You're not certifying. Perhaps it's time to seize the day. Don't just see the opportunity, seize it.
Every auto insurance policy has a number. But not every insurance company understands the life behind it. Those who have served our nation have earned the very best service in return. USAA. We know what it means to serve. In an auto insurance world, that's why 92% of our members plan to save for life. The first stock index was created over 100 years ago as a benchmark for average. Yet many people still build portfolios with strategies that just track benchmarks. But investing is about achieving average. It's about achieving goals. And Invesco believes doing that today requires the art and expertise of high conviction investing. Translation. It's time to bench the benchmarks. This is not just disappearing jobs. It's what the national debt could do. At 18 trillion and growing, it's threatening to harm our economy. As the debt grows, money for other programs like education will shrink. In just 8 years, interest on the debt will be our third largest federal program. Bad news for our bridges and roads. The good news? There's still time for a solution. Ask the candidates for a plan to secure our future.
As consultants for 87 of the Fortune 100 and half the Global 500, we know how the big guys get things done because we're the ones who help them do it. RGB, Intellectual Capital on Demand.
At NFS Investment Management, we believe in the power of active management. We actively manage with expertise and conviction, so you can invest with more certainty. NFS, that's the power of active management.
Journey to a world beyond anything you can imagine. Almost next.
The Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios Hollywood. Reserve tickets online now.
Welcome back, everybody. Our guest host this morning, AMC Networks President and CEO Josh Saban. Hey, Josh, let's talk a little bit about the market and how the market values a lot of the different entertainment companies out there, because it's been this up and down. We know that you have delivered a steady stream of hits. You still have a lot of big numbers that are out there. But lately, there have been questions in the marketplace about any of the content creators suggesting how can we keep it up? How can we keep this stream of hits coming that raise issues like that? We go back and forth from thinking content is king to thinking, oh my gosh, how do you continue to be the beast? What do you say to people about that?
I think there's probably a little bit of tentativeness in the way the market goes about media. I do think that content is king, and I do think the exploitation and monetization of content on multiple platforms, which increases. By today, we have cable channels, we now have international channels, we sell to SVOD, we spoke about, is redemption. It really does work, and it means you become a distributor, meaning you have a channel, and you also become a studio, to use that word. You actually own the content and exploit it now in multiple places and for a long time. So,
Do you need to get even bigger in terms of content?
I think more content and great content is better. I don't think scale for scale's sake matters.
We want to thank you for being with us today. It's really a pleasure.
It'd be great. Thanks for having me. It's really, thank you.
To ask you something. We're going to go toss it and then show that we're going to ask you a question. Sorry. Make sure you join us on Monday. Squawk on the Street is next.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Carl King today with Jim Cramer at the New York Stock Exchange. David Faber's off. Heading into a long Easter weekend with a weak pre-market and the S&P once again negative on the year. Europe's off in the red, oil under more pressure. We'll talk about this dollar rebound that is continuing. Our roadmap begins with Starboard launching a proxy fight with Yahoo, pushing to remove the entire board, getting ready to name 9 new members. UBS slapping a sell rating on Wells Fargo, citing risks to the bank's future revenue growth. And the S&P, as we said, now red for 2016 as the markets are closed tomorrow. First up, some new developments this morning regarding the Brussels terror attacks. Our chief international correspondent, Michelle Cruz-Rivera, is live in the Belgian capital. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, Carl. New political ramifications in the wake of Tuesday's attack. In just the last few minutes, Belgian media reporting that both the Justice Minister and the Interior Minister tendered their resignation, but the Prime Minister refused. Of course, tendering their resignation because there's been lots of recriminations, lots of questions about why did this attack happen when clearly the city was already under alert based on what had happened as a result of the Paris attacks and the search for Salah Abdeslam. And while the investigation continues into what happened on Tuesday, the justice process is ongoing. here at this makeshift memorial where we are, they are stopping people with bags, and police are checking to see what are in those bags. We actually spoke with an American who's been living here for the last 3.5 years, Sean Meadows, and he says it's been incredibly tense over the last couple of days.
It wasn't like this before the attacks. We didn't have soldiers checking everybody at every station and searching bags and people. And yeah, it's a noticeable difference. It's aggravating that we all have to feel like this. That these guys make us feel this way. It's a shame. I'm trying to explain it to your children. That's the tough part.
It's about lunchtime here in Brussels, so the crowd here, this makeshift memorial is getting larger as people come out once again to collectively mourn, very similar to what we saw in Paris in the wake of the November attacks. Back to you.
Michelle, we'll come back to you throughout the day for more developments. Thank you so much, Michelle Cabrera. As we said earlier today, Starboard Value launching a proxy fight with Yahoo, announcing plans to nominate 9 directors in an effort to replace the company's entire board. Starboard says it owns 1.7% of Yahoo's outstanding. In a letter to his shareholders, Starboard managing partner Jeffrey Smith writes, "We've been extremely disappointed with Yahoo's dismal financial performance, poor management execution, egregious compensation and hiring practices, and general lack of accountability and oversight by the board. We believe the board clearly lacks the leadership, objectivity, and perspective needed to make decisions that are in the best interests of shareholders." Smith, one of the 9 nominees, Jim, but the slate you find interesting.
Yeah, actually, there's a couple people there that are kind of, well, neither here or there, but there's one that I think people are going to focus on who is. There's a man by the name of Richard Hill. Rick Hill is one of the greatest money makers I've ever seen in my lifetime. He created tremendous value for Novellus, which he then just made monster and sold land research. This is back in 2011 when it was one of those, he came on man money, just said, look, this is it. We're going to Novellus, you got to own Novellus. The quarters were getting better and better. They were buying back stock. And then he flipped it to land for using that. And then he joined the board of TSRA. This was an air-to-well company that associated with the cameras yourself. But he turned that company around so quickly. So quickly, it was incredible. If you had Rick Hill, if Rick Hill was the interim CEO, if Bruce Myers steps down, if they made Rick Hill the interim CEO, you could have one of really, that's a great display. This man is a miracle man. And those who don't know him, and haven't seen what he did at Tesla, and haven't seen what he did at Novellus, you got to look him up. He's one of a kind. He's a very, very smart man. He doesn't come in as a board member quietly. TSR, take a look at this Tesla. But what he did with land was just remarkable. It's really one of the great gains of all time. If he's interested in coming in, he will not be up the slate. He will keep the slate. And that's just a huge win. I don't know how Starbuck got it. It would take him out of retirement. But Rick Hill is, this slate is about Rick Hill. It is not about these other people.
That's a wrinkle that has not been noticed yet.
You must know Rick Hill. Rick Hill is maybe in the valley respected as one of these people who is an amazing turnaround artist. He's quiet. He's funny. He makes money.
Now, a lot of people still wonder this morning, you can put anyone in any of these jobs on the board or in management. It's not going to make people want to turn to Yahoo more.
Well, if Rick Hill's interim CEO, I'm just going to sit here and say, even in this market where the dollar's suddenly the wrong way, you've got some energy coming down, and you watch Rick Hill. I mean, those other people, hey, they seem like those people. Okay, you get Rick Hill in there, and this thing goes upside down. This guy can bring out value. Honestly, I remember when he went into Tesla, I said, hey, Tesla is a terrible company. He said, watch the company. And I said, well, Tesla is nothing. It's a nothing company. Watch the company. Novellus also ran semiconductor, I thought, so long. He bought back stock. He was taking it private. And then Lam, which is the smartest company in the industry, gives you that big 20+ premium. Rick Hill is the man, and I don't know how they got it. And if you look out Yahoo if Rick Hill comes in, because he's not going to come in as just a board member.
We may be coming back to this conversation in a few weeks.
Rick's real. People don't know Rick. They're going to get to know him. Starboard wins. He's going to make it so you've never seen anyone. You know what a horse
said earlier, stocks are on track to snap the 5-week winning streak one day after the S&P fell back into negative territory for the year. Markets close tomorrow in observance of Good Friday. On the economic front, claims are up by 6,265, roughly in line. Claims were revised lower by 6,000. Durables, meantime, fell 2.8 as businesses cut back on spending. The prior was 4.7. They revised lower X-Trans. It was an interruption in the good macro we've gotten.
Yeah, I had been constructive post the Fed. I was constructive going into the Fed meeting, was constructive coming out of the meeting. And there's a reason, because when you have the chief people in the Fed saying, listen, we're on hold, that gives you a chance to own stocks. Now, we've had this mini revolt that no one has chronicled better than Steve Houston, and that suddenly has caused the dollar to go up. That's not part of my thesis. Caused oil to go down, not part of my thesis. These guys just make it so it's almost impossible to invest. And you have to pull back from honestly, when you wake up and you see these guys, literally you thought that, well, guys, you're not going to just disagree with the orthodoxy next week, are you? A head coach on a football team says, we're going ground game. The offensive coordinator comes in a week later and says, you know what, this is air. This is just going right into the air. I can't figure out whether they're running a ground game or an air. I was watching Sarah and this morning, and Sarah was like, Sarah's doing her thing at 5:03. It's just, this is ridiculous. And I'm thinking, yeah, go get him, Sarah, because it is. You can't switch directions like this overnight and still expect people to be able to make good decisions and then get this weak information today. I mean, I throw my hands up your call ahead of the 3-day. I just say, well, wait a second, you predicated thesis on Yellen, who last I looked was the chairman.
Yes.
And then these other people come out, including a Mueller, and my line Mueller. Yeah. And suddenly, Mueller was very keen on oil went up. And suddenly I said, okay, well, look, my thesis print was really about the dollar peaking. And they are playing right into Draghi's hands. And they're having the euro go down. I don't get it. It's so hard to invest.
It sounds like you're not going to fight it, though. Why not bring the register on oil? Why not on commodities?
I asked it, I was going over with RBN this morning. At $40, there's really some remarkable things that happen. $40, well, 12, there's a group of counties. And I thought this was just fantastic. They did a lot of work on how we do oil in 40 bucks. This young place, there are a dozen oil-dominant counties that are profitable. 40 counties out of them all. They all go, a lot of counties. There's many counties. And I think it's important to point out that maybe commercial went down to 26, but 40 was a lot of this was only chatter, being Russian, Saudis, and we had summer driving, so you had to switch, but one new rig. But in the end, RBN's got the best numbers, even better than EIA, and they're talking about this is Russian result. Production will be down, is now down 600,000 for the week, which was last year, and it should be down another 750,000. Simply $40 is unsustainable. There's a note out today about Range Resources. Once their hedges come off, then they would be Range Resources are a good company. You see that without hedges, a lot of these oil companies are going to be able to lose a lot of money. Barclays goes to a selling range. I'm using that just as emblematic. Well, $40 is not going to cut it for our oil companies. So you're going to go back into that no man's land. I love the Gertrude Stein. There is no there quote from RBN, but I don't like this market doing what it's doing so quickly.
It's hard not to notice in KBH's call the fact that they're limiting investment in the Houston area, despite feeling good about orders overall.
Houston down 20%, but let's talk about that KBH call because Mr. Metzger, who's a very smart guy, remember, this stock, by the way, $13, book value is 19. They bought back a huge amount of stock, and that makes sense. But it's a 28% growth in deliveries, a sizable year backlog. But then get this. They say, okay, listen, they're seeing labor constraints, higher land prices, higher costs rising from everything from framing to concrete. There's definitely a shortage of labor. You certainly don't want to hear that. You don't want to read this. These are JDO, please don't read the KBH call. And then in the Bay Area, which is a dominant area, so they're using good. Metzger says, I don't think you're anywhere near a bubble price. Certainly not the price points we're playing at. Sad to say, but $1.5 million is an affordable house in the Bay Area right now. The Hawks cannot read this because they will say, predicated on the fact that profit margins were at 90 basis points and that there's a shortage of labor, they would say, we've got to raise KBH. You'd be raising because of California, correct? Not because of the rest of the country. Vegas, Nevada is okay. Arizona's okay. Texas is weak. Bay Area is on fire. These unicorn guys, I guess they got something.
Forget forget about being a first-time buyer, that's for sure.
Oh, no, you're not going to go. We can't raise rates, basically. Look, they seem to want to do it again. They seem to want to do it again. Now, KBH, just so we really know, the stock was at $84, okay, in 2005. And then it went to $5 in the depth of the recession, and then it went to $25 in 2013 before the flow tightened. It's back to 13. And again, the stock is cheap, but you're fighting the Fed. You're fighting these mini-Fed rebellion. You know, a mini-Fed rebellion is not what we need. Let's really push down.
Others would say, do you want like somebody that speaks with uniformity, never has any dissent inside? I mean, it's groupthink.
Well, let's go here. Sarah, thank you, Sarah. I should just say right now, don't want to hike if inflation expectations falling. Maybe special factors, especially if you recover inflation. Jury is out. I always like it when the jury's out. But at the same time, Trump will well. But Draghi is winning right now. You know, Draghi was losing. I just want to point out that when you see this kind of discord, you're going to buy the dollar and sell these other currencies. That's what's kind of happening. And it's tempering the bull case.
Yeah.
Especially at a 3-day. That's tempering the bull case, tempering my bull case. But I'm on air every night saying, listen, the dollar may have peaked and what these media people say no. Get on the dollar.
When we come back, Wells Fargo gets slapped with a sell rating over at UBS. We're going to talk about that for sure. Take another look at the pre-market. A down day for the Dow. This 3 in a row, first time since early February. We're back from post 9 in a minute.